Is calling to order the PGUSD School Board regular meeting on February 6, 2025. And I'll start with our land acknowledgement. So good evening. As we begin this meeting, it's important to pay respect to and acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Ohlone, Costanoan, and Esselen people, and additionally pay respect to elders, both past and present. So I think we have now a quick roll call vote.
Absolutely. President Dr. Hazen.
I am here.
Clerk McNary. Here. Trustee Otmar is on her way. Trustee Shamaz. Here. And Trustee Wax.
Here. And next item with 4 out of 5 of us, the adoption of the agenda. Are there any walk-ons or things we need to be aware of?
No walk-ons, but there is one adjustment. The student presentation that we had scheduled is not going to happen. It was our culinary arts group from the high school, and they have a big competition coming up in Los Angeles. So we will have them in March. Indeed. So yes, nothing for this evening, unfortunately.
Great. So with that, is there any public comments on the agenda as presented, either online or in the room? Seeing none, the board, any discussion, questions, concerns? Okay. If not, I will make a motion to approve the agenda without our unfortunate presentation, but totally understandable since they're competing. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion was made by myself and seconded by Trustee Shamaz. And with that, we will take a vote to approve the agenda. You're welcome to vote or not on this one. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes 5-0. So with that, I will identify the closed session topics, right? And then we will adjourn. So we are going to meet in closed session to consider matters appropriate in accordance with Ed and Gov Code. So item 1 is negotiations, collective bargaining session, planning and prep with the PGTA for 24-25, Government Code 3549.1. Negotiations, number 2, collective bargaining session, planning and prep with the CSEA for 24-25, Government Code 3549.1. Item 3 is public employee discipline dismissal, release, leave complaint, Government Code 54957. And then we also have the superintendent goals review mid-year check-in. So do we have any public comment online or in the room on these items? Seeing none, I will go ahead and adjourn to closed session. It is currently 6:30. I'm gaveling us back into open session, and I will start by reporting action taken in closed session for item 1, negotiations. Information was received and direction given for PGTA. Item 2, negotiations with CSEA. Information was received. Item 3, public employee discipline dismissal, release, leave complaint. Information was received and input was given. And then we're pushing item 4 till after the meeting. So with that, we are now doing the Pledge of Allegiance. And maybe Beth, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening? Thank you so much. And we're now going to jump right into item 4, communications. We were very fortunate to have a little taste from the culinary club that's going down to LA next weekend. I'll just quickly say on that they had shrimp and grits, and growing up in the South, the best shrimp and grits I ever had was in Pugins Porch in Charleston, South Carolina. And this was really darn close. So congrats to them. It was really impressive. So first, communications, we have our student rep leading us off. Item A.
Hi. Oh, sorry. I'm ASB Vice, and I'm here to give our report on Pacific Grove High School. So first off, all of our students have picked their classes for next year, and our seniors are applying or waiting for responses from colleges, trade schools, and military. Thanks to Mr. Keller, Mr. Morrison, and Mr. Latham, our digital marquee panel is in main hall and now fully functional. This has been very helpful in the past couple of weeks in providing timely information to students in real time each day. Our ASB events so far, Last week we had our winter ball on the 1st. Our winter sports rally was today, and our winter sports week was all this week. It went very well. And next week we have a Feel the Love Spirit Week for Valentine's Day. Some sports updates are wrestling. The boys team competed in the Cyprus Division Championships of PGUSD last Wednesday, and division weight champions from PGHS were Darius Hutchinson, Timothy Sabala, Jimmy Lipper, and Adam Motter. Girls basketball team has continued their undefeated season with another league win over Stevenson in the past week. And girls and boys basketball will both be competing in the CCS playoffs. And for community high school, the students at community high school started the new year in an exciting fashion as they had each the opportunity to tour Monterey Peninsula College on January 16th, 2025. Included on the tour was a presentation by the MPC professor of psychology, along with a picnic, lunch trip, and a trip to the campus student union to experience student life at MPC. And that's it.
Thank you so much. And so we're going to go around for board member comments, written communications. I think why don't we start with trustee Shamas and head towards me and with trustee Wax, so that's okay.
Okay, I received emails regarding importance of STEM and STEAM education, the Spanish teacher, mental health therapists, digital learning teacher, and consequences of proposed budget cuts, concerns of proposed budget cuts. And yeah, so I'm sure we all got those same emails. I appreciate everyone voicing their concerns, and we take that seriously. The other thing I want to say is I went to the PG High basketball game last night. It was so fun, and so great to see the gym pretty full for girls basketball. So, and it was like old home week. There were so many alumni there and their parents and old teachers, and Coach Fuller was there. I mean, it was a really fun night. So kudos to them. Thank you.
So I also received many emails about tonight's packet, Spanish, mental health, everything I'm sure that we all received. I read them all multiple times. I want to say that out loud, multiple times. And we do take those emails very seriously. Thank you very much for everybody that took the time to write to us. It's important that we hear your voices, so we know how you feel and how the community feels. I went to the boys basketball game last week. That was super fun. I'm looking forward to the game on the 14th. So that should be a blast. And I think that's also senior night. Am I right? So I'm looking forward to that.
Ditto on all of the written communications, and thank you to everyone who has written and texted and reached out. I think I'm going to start with a bit more of a serious note, and that's just because there's so much going on in our community, in our state, in our country, and specifically with regard to our LGBTQ plus community. And I know that we are in California, and the legal protections for non-binary and transgender youth haven't changed, but there is a lot of increased national attention. And so this is going to have an impact, and it already is. So the state has put out resources that if you're a young person or someone who's young that you care about is in distress, there is the 998 Lifeline and neverabother.org and the Saluna app as resources for anyone who needs to talk. And as a board, I think we can say that no matter who you are or what your story is, like, you belong here in PGUSD. And then during these really crazy times, I think we all need a little joy. And so for me, that has been music. And I didn't grow up in the musical arts, but I have a middle schooler who is an aspiring thespian and very talented. And so I had the honor of going to the CCS honor choir performance in Watsonville over the weekend. And these are kiddos who participate in their school choir and then try out to be part of an honor choir. We had about 5 kiddos from the middle school and I think 9 or 10 from the high school, along with Mr. Mazer and Mrs. Boulware. And the kids practiced for 2 full days straight, singing all day long with their fellow choir mates from other campuses. And on Sunday, they come together for a show, and it's just beautiful. I mean, it's so moving to listen to the creativity and see the hard work and the love and the joy and the passion that they pour into their craft. And so for me, that was a really big highlight. And for anybody else who is looking for another highlight or some fun, I am a middle school parent, so this is kind of where my weekends fall. Madagascar this weekend, the middle school is putting on. There are shows on Friday night, Saturday twice, and Sunday. It's been put on by Mrs. Boulware and Ashley Beam, and there are so many kids in the production, and they are dressing up as animals. And if you have a middle schooler or know a middle schooler, you know what a big deal that is to be willing to dress up as a penguin, because it's middle school. So I encourage you, if you have a couple hours this weekend, to come out, check it out. It will be hilarious and a really good time. So thanks. That's my comments.
Thank you so much. And just following on Trustee McNary's comments, our district culture of we does take the safety and of belonging of our students first and foremost. And so even if you don't feel that way nationally right now, you're not alone. There's a lot of people that feel that way. And here at the district, we hope it's a safe space. And I will start and finish somber, unfortunately, tonight, but I just do want to recognize that this is a beyond difficult time for many people personally and professionally. We're in uncharted territory with constant uncertainty and challenges that can weigh heavily on us as individuals and as a community. The federal administration is discussing the dissolution of the Department of Education right now. For PGUSD, I fear that the elimination of this department would jeopardize federal funding, programs supporting students with disabilities, and initiatives that will promote education of all of our students. So I do plan on asking tonight at the district office what this would mean in terms of loss of funding and resources later. I also want to emphasize that I recognize the importance of a job, not just in terms of salary, but identity. It's a source of purpose, connection, and stability. It provides a sense of belonging and the opportunity to contribute to something larger than ourselves. So jobs not only provide the financial security that's at stake, but also the relationships, routines, and shared goals that give our days meaning. So these positions we are discussing tonight make a positive difference in our district's children's lives. So I recognize this personally more than many in the room might know, but also as a board member, and I carry the weight of these decisions with me. These decisions are not taken lightly. So I will end my comments there and move on now to the superintendent. Oh, sorry, Trustee Wax, thank you very much. I will end with Trustee Wax, like I was saying.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. In terms of communication, I have also received the emails advocating in favor of keeping positions. But within those emails are also testimony about how amazing all teachers, but the teachers under consideration for a reduction are. And it's a horrible way to get a compliment, but it is still a compliment, just how much you impact everyone's lives. So for everyone in the audience, thank you so much. Along with some other board members, there is a air of uncertainty about what's happening in the nation. And I'm only going to speak for myself, but I saw that LAUSD has this card on their website. And I realize that a majority of our population will not be affected by this, but I think there's a service in spreading the word. So you do have constitutional rights. Do not open the door if an immigration agent is knocking on the door. Do not answer any questions from an immigration agent. If they try to talk to you, you have the right to remain silent. Do not sign anything without speaking first to the lawyer. You have the right to speak with a lawyer. If you are outside of your home, ask the agent if you are free to leave, and if they say yes, leave calmly. Give this card to the agent. If you are inside of your home, show the card through the window or slide it under the door. There is a flood of things happening, which is part of the strategy of the new administration to enact their goals, which I understand. But along with the culture of we and the new administration's current focus on DEI, I think it's important to remember that it's that they're currently not targeting inclusion in the future. They are erasing inclusion of the past. They're removing the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. They are taking away the history of women programmers and people who serve. And that is the Dark Ages. To me, that is modeling up history and worth. And it is very much telling the story of history just through a very particular lens. And I have many disagreements with the administration on a variety of things, but this is truly one of the more, well, I won't even rank it because I think there are lots of damaging things, but it is alarming. And I think as a community in my small position, we have to call it what it is. And I think what's also highlighted by everyone in this audience versus the quote unquote process of what's happening nationally, this is transparent. This is a discussion. I will speak for myself, but as you heard, everyone values your input, and that is what a democracy is, in my opinion. So I think we're going about it the right way. And also, I'd like to remind everyone that right now, tonight, is not the beginning of a process, but depending on your scope, we are in the middle of it. Everything that is happening is because of housing costs, enrollments, lack of childcare because people have fewer kids, and then we get less money as a district. So nothing is siloed off to itself. When you are thinking about issues, as I am now, especially in this privileged role, I think we have to think about how everything interconnects, that we are not just making a decision on the thing that we decide on, but its lasting effects. So when we take away childcare, that is a financial implication for many people. That affects our community down the line, and that is what we are dealing with right now as we approach these topics. So I appreciate you all for being here. Oh man, I totally forgot this one communication thing too. Miss Grogan has emailed twice. This is a real non sequitur and a real tangent, but Miss Grogan has emailed twice about Poetry Out Loud, and congratulations. I forget if Juliet mentioned it, but congratulations to Liliana Lily P. Great job. You are the third place in the Poetry Out Loud, and that's radical. So congratulations.
Thank you so much for ending us on a high note there too. That was important to me. We now have the superintendent report. Dr. Adamson.
Well, you took one off my list, so thank you for that, Trustee Wax. It's wonderful, very exciting. Just before I start, the beautiful artwork around us, I hope you take some time just to admire it. Again, thank you to Forest Grove, Mrs. Carrie Serper in the room here, just for letting us have it, and we're going to keep it in very good guardianship, right, from Ocean Guardian. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. I just also want to start by acknowledging just it's so wonderful even though it's not for good reason to have this room filled with so many of you and who are here tonight for a very important topic that's number one on our agenda this evening. So I just want to call that out. I know several of our trustees have said that, just that we're grateful for you, for your advocacy, for being here, a part of the process. And I know it's hard decisions that lie in store of us, and there'll be plenty of time to talk about that. But I really just want to start by acknowledging and thanking you all for showing up this evening, even with the weather, right? And so you're here for important reasons, and we appreciate that. I did want to just mention to Juliet, I was at the high school earlier this week, and I did not even know that there was a digital marquee now that it's working. So again, just kudos to the Mr. O'Meara and Mr. Keller there for getting that back up and running. And it's just a great way of advertising some of the great things that are happening there. So good for you. I know it's been Kindness Week the last few weeks at all of our schools have in some way done something to celebrate that. I was invited to Forest Grove today for a jammy jam dance party. I wasn't able to make it because we just had a lot going on here today, but I'm so sad I missed it, but I'm sure it was wonderful. I look forward to seeing some photos for that. But what a great way, right, to spread kindness, dancing and pajamas. You cancelled it. Oh, so I will have to. Perfect. I will be there. Good. In my jammies. Okay, so that was that one. Let's see. And then I was, just privileged enough to attend Robert Downs' book night last Friday night to read to students. It was raining, I know, that evening, and really cold. So I know the participation was a little lower than it's been. I got to do it last year, but it was just how awesome to see all the students there, cozy, eating popcorn, and so many of the teachers there reading and parents as well to students. Principal Brownfield did a really great book as well. And so just wonderful. I think anytime we can be in front of students and share that joy with them, the love of reading. I did want to say, just tying in a little to what you were referencing as far as just immigration policies and a little bit of that fear that's within our community now, and everything you were reading about knowing your rights. I just want to do a shout out to Principal Martinez and Assistant Principal Arps. They held Tuesday earlier this week at the adult school a class specifically on that topic. We offer a class here through the adult school on immigration and English as a second language for adult learners. And so for many of them, those are applicated, they're going through that process, the immigration process now to really become citizens. And so it was really just incredible information and just a really good safe space, to allow everyone to learn more about, what those rights are. So again, thank you for offering that. I did want to mention I had a wonderful visit here at the district office today in my office from paraprofessionals, Mr. Neely and Mrs. Vanessa, who are both with our adult transition program. Also located at the adult school, but they came out with two of their students today to interview me and my assistant, Mrs. Viejas, to really ask questions about. They are in the process of putting together a recycling program, and so they are visiting all of our schools and interviewing the principals and staff there. But I got to be first, and they had 15 questions for me that they had collaborated on together using technology, a little bit of AI as well. But there were some questions that Lucira had to help me with a little as well, and just kind of asking along the lines of I won't go into detail with it, but yeah, they were pretty in depth questions that they had. So just a wonderful opportunity and such a great way of showcasing, our students, that particular program on really building innovation and creativity and empowering our students. They were so professional in the way they articulated themselves, taking notes as they went, and just an honor. I'll be highlighting it in my next newsletter for sure, but had to, just share that. Also got to visit, you made mention, Dr. Hazen of Chef Erickson's culinary class. And so they were originally, scheduled to present at the beginning today. They'll be coming back in March. They have a huge competition coming up towards the end of February. It's a state competition where the entire culinary arts team will be performing, but we got to have a little bit of a taste test tonight. And they may be back a little later tonight. So if you stick around, you may get to taste a little of it yourselves. But so impressive, 3-course meal. This is sort of, 5-star restaurant level, food that they're preparing. And I'm eager to see how they do in Los Angeles. They're all really excited about that. But I got to talk with them in their class earlier this week and just really hear about the process, looking at the menu, how they developed it, and just a lot of incredible learning that they're all taking on. I did just want to, share out, we had our community engagement event last week, Wednesday at Forest Grove. I want to really just acknowledge and thank Dr. Hagquist for his coordination of that, all of our site leaders and staff who were there representing and sharing out the work that you have all done towards your cultural proficiency planning. It wasn't as attended as well as we would have hoped, and we also ended up not having a lot of time, as much time as we had planned for feedback at the end. And so we will be scheduling in the very in the immediate weeks, a follow-up of that, a part 2, where we can really just purely focus that on input and really working at promoting that more so we can get more families there to hear voices. And then really, Mike, last piece, speaking of community input, we have got a couple of those events that will also be starting in March and April. March, you will be seeing flyers coming out soon on our community event to input session to get input on our facilities master plan. And as you'll recall, that is specifically something that we'll be putting together to identify priority projects based on community input to identify how we'll be spending the funds from Measure B, which our community, so unanimously and graciously really voted for at the last election. So that will be forthcoming. I really encourage you all to be a part of that. We'll have staff sessions, community sessions. We really want to be sure we capture everyone's input. And then LCAP input sessions will be starting as well. So you'll be seeing notifications for all of those coming forth. Really, I think I'm going to go ahead and stop there and hand it back to you.
Excellent.
Dr. Hazen.
I think we have next the safety report.
I do. Thank you,
Assistant
Dr.
Superintendent.
Hazen. So quick storm update. Monterey County continues to be under weather, severe weather watch, and strong winds and rain expected through this week and next week. We'll continue to monitor the weather and send out timely updates to families regarding transportation and safety conditions at our campuses. Big Five, you can see these are up here at the dais, but we now have our Big Five flip charts. They've been delivered to each one of the school sites. All the classrooms and offices will display them. Each trustee has one, and then we have one in the hallway there. This is quite an upgrade from, I think, what we had in the past in the classrooms, which might have been there for about 20 years. So good information, and it's what we're training on regularly and routinely at our school sites. The San Mateo County Office of Education, along with MCOE, our County Office of Education, held the Big Five Train the Trainer cohort on February 5th from 2 to 4 p.m. Both Director Martinez and Principal Cy Brownfield attended. Some of the topics that were covered were the review of the Big Five protocols, development of inclusive practices, upcoming changes, and additional guidance forthcoming. Cohort members will also have the chance to debrief regarding current trainings, future trainings, challenges, and successes. So more to come alongside on the Big Five training with our County Office of Education. We do have an active shooter attack prevention and preparedness training at the high school on March 6th from 3:45 to 4:45. That is also sponsored by the Monterey County Office of Education in partnership with the FBI San Francisco office to arrange active shooter prevention and preparedness training for all high school educators and staff. Additional information related to that item will be released over Catapult as we progress. Some other items in training over at the adult school, the Medics for Life CPR infant, child, adult first aid training is being held on March 17th. The Medics for Life will train 25 of our adult school staff, CPR, AED training, and first aid training. Under our general threat and assessment training, all of our sites have now been trained on the We Got Your Back train the trainer instructions. That took place over the course of a few weeks at our 4 school sites. All school sites have completed the training, and we're going to roll out the We Got Your Back training curriculum in the spring and continue to supplement that curricular material with Big Five safety training. And that's it for my safety update.
Thank you so much. So now we're on to item 5, individuals desiring to address the board. And so I do want to remind, I'm going to read this out. This is specifically on items that are non-agenda items that we're starting with. We will have other time for agenda items, but this will be the time when I kind of read the rules, so to speak. And it's small, but I think I still don't need glasses yet. Public comment on any item of interest to the public that is within the board's jurisdiction will be heard. The board will also take public comment on each specific action item prior to the board action on each item. Any individual wishing to comment on a specific item on the current agenda are currently asked to wait until that item is being discussed. The board will allow a reasonable amount of time for public comment on each agenda item, not to exceed 3 minutes per speaker, and no more than 20 minutes per agenda item pursuant to board policy 9323. Just a quick update or comment on this is because there are so many people in the room at the end of 20 minutes, the board can vote to extend the public comment. So if we're approaching that, I'll just remind folks in the room, if you're to say something that's already been said, I do encourage you to keep, time in mind, give them support for what they said, but not need to take the whole 3 minutes again and go over that time. The speakers will be called sequentially from online and then in the room until there is no speaker coming forward on the agenda item or the amount of time allocated for the agenda item has elapsed, whichever comes first. This meeting of the Board of Education is a business meeting of the board conducted in public. So please note that the Brown Act limits the board's ability to respond to public comment. The board may choose to direct items to the administration for action or place an item on a future agenda. So with that, if there's any non-agenda items, if we have any community members here in the room or online, we'll start one in the room and then go online. Thanks.
My name is Mo Amar.
Make sure you're, sorry, the mic's on. There you go.
Thank you. Good evening, staff members, board. My name is Mo Amar, and I had the fortune of having 3 kids go through Pacific Grove Unified School District. And I'm happy to report to you that every one of them has done exceptionally well, thanks to the program, thanks to the teachers, and thanks to PG Unified. I'm very proud of my kids and their accomplishment. This year, I have 2 kids at Forest Grove and grandkids, and next year I'll have 4 grandkids at Forest Grove. And the reason I'm before you is to share with you that I live right across the street from the high school, and you are a great neighbor. I live in West Shamas's neighborhood. Thank you for allowing us to use the gym and all the facilities and the track, and I can't be happier. Finally, I'd like to share with you that around a month ago, I had a minor concern with Forest Grove that I brought to the attention of Principal Arburn. And I just wanted to share with you the experience that I had. She was simply amazing. She was professional. She was courteous. And I'll tell you, I've never met her, but I could not believe a public servant. She belongs at the Ritz-Carlton or a Pebble Beach company. She went out of her way to make me happy. And I thank you for doing that. And then my last comment is, for 30 years, I served on the local board and I administered the local board, and I know the position you're in, and I know it's a very, very, very difficult position. And I know it may be on the agenda, but I just want to tell you, they do a phenomenal job. And we selected Pacific Grove because of the school district and because of the teachers, and I could live anywhere in the world, but this is where I want to be. And I'm hoping that my great grandkids would go to Pacific Grove Unified. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your comments. We're going to jump online real quick and then we'll come right back to in person. So thank you, Tom. Sorry.
Gibbs.
Hey, Mike Gibbs, you have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. It's Mike Gibbs. Thank you for showing up on this kind of crazy evening with the weather. I'm a frequent speaker here, and I understand that there's some changes coming in the school district, and I'm not here to remind anybody except what the facts are. And Pacific Grove School District has experienced drops of enrollment, and the scores are mirroring what's going on in the United States, and they're not where they should be. I know there's a lot of concern about what's going on with the Department of Education. I just went online, and the federal website for the Department of Education is temporarily suspended. But what I would like to say is that everybody is concerned about budgets and money, and this is only going to get more severe as we go forward. But I'd like to remind everybody that the Department of Education at the federal level has a $240 billion budget, and the stated goal by this administration is to return $240 billion in block grants to state and local districts, right? So I have no reason to not believe that that's going to happen. So I think we should just hold our water a little bit and actually see what happens. And it may turn out to be the kind of a thing that there will be more money and more local control, not less. Let's see. Mr. Wax mentioned that I didn't quite get the comment, but something to the effect that the Tuskegee Airmen were erased. I'm not sure what the comment was. That's simply not true. And I didn't hear Mr. Wax mention that the last Tuskegee Airman, whose name is Harry Stewart, he was the last of 355 Tuskegee Airmen. He passed away on Sunday at age 100. They had a glorious service. They've been honored for the service, and they should be honored for the service. And I don't believe anybody has any intention of erasing the history of those fine service members to this country. Last thing I would mention is that the NAEP scores were reported a few months ago, and scores dropped again across the United States, and particularly for minority students. So I'm looking for federal money coming back to state and local districts for a better, even better education at Pacific Grove Unified School District. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Back to the room.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hazen, trustees, superintendent. I am Dr. Tom Moore. I'm president of the Monterey Peninsula Soccer League and also of California Soccer Association North. I apologize for the mask. I was not feeling so generous as to want to share the cold I have with any of you in the room. Instead, if it's possible, I'd like to call up Principal O'Mara or Stan Powers here, either the coaches. I don't know if any of them are here. As many of you know, for the past 15 years, we have been running a fundraising program over at Pacific Grove High School in support of the boys and girls high school soccer teams. The past year, we actually had a very good year. I think maybe post COVID, folks wanted to get out and do some more exercise. I can't guarantee that we'll have a good year next year like this, but I would like to present two checks. One is for $9,075 for the boys high school soccer team. And the other is for $9,075 for the girls soccer team, of course. And that brings the total over the past 15 years to $144,508.27 that we raised for the programs here. I can tell you that our players and our team managers very much appreciate the ability to make use of the stadium facility. So we thank you very much for your excellent cooperation. I hope we can continue this going forward. And we are looking to expand the program in a kind of unique way. If anyone has ever heard of walking soccer, where no one's allowed to run, we'd like to try and do some demonstration games. I hear there might be some folks, some buyers in the local audience. So we will keep you posted as we go forward on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the comments and the donations as well. No one else online, no one else in the room. Okay, one more for the room. Yep.
Quickly. It is the week of the school counselor. And so I'd like to say thank you to the school counselors for all the support that they give us at all levels. We couldn't do our jobs without them. And they really make this place the culture of we that we all say is important. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the comments, Ms. Serpa. And with that, we will go on to PGUSD. Oh, staff comments. Yep. Okay. No one online, no one in the room. We will now go to item 6, the consent agenda. So items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine and may have been discussed at a previous board meeting. There's no discussion of these items prior to the board vote unless a member of the board requests specific items to be discussed or removed from the consent agenda. Each item on the consent agenda approved by the Board of Trustees shall be deemed to have been considered in full and adopted as recommended. So we now will open up to public comment for items. This is items A through Q on consent. And if anyone has any questions or concerns they want to raise, public, no. Okay. No public comment, board discussion. Did anyone have any? Oh, one raised hand. Okay. On consent. Yes, please online. Looks like Mallory.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm Miss Beamy. I'm the mental health therapist for Forest Grove and Robert Down. I've been doing this for 15 years, and the children are the reason why I do what I do. And they drive me, and the teachers drive me, and the admin are my biggest cheerleaders. And that's what I wanted to say. So I am privileged and honored to have had this experience with you all. Whatever you guys decide, whatever happens tonight, let it be whatever it is. It may be whatever it is. That's all.
Okay, thank you. So this is comments for consent agenda though, so we'll take those into account. I appreciate you raising them, but these are items A through Q on consent. With that, do we have any board discussion on these items? Getting around? Nope, not seeing any. Okay. With that, would anyone like to make a motion to approve consent?
I'll make a motion to approve consent on staff's recommendation.
Okay, motion made by trustee McNary. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by trustee Shamas. So all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Passes. Oh, all opposed, please say nay. Okay, it passes 5-0. So now we're on to item 7, information discussion item, staff recommendation for reductions. And this is Chief Rogerman's item, I think, who's.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and then Chief Rogerman will be sort of just walking us through some of the proposals that we have. So, I wanted to start by saying that, obviously this next item, we're intending through this presentation to address our district's financial outlook, and obviously also, in addition to that, propose necessary adjustments that we are bringing forward for our staffing and programs. Before we begin, I want to start by just acknowledging the weight and impact of these decisions. Every position and program that we're discussing in relation to the budget represents dedicated professionals who have served our students and community. And I think, as has been expressed, those are not decisions that are taken lightly. Like many districts across our state, we're currently facing the expiration of one-time federal and state funding. This was funding that was provided for post-pandemic learning recovery and mental health support. While funding allowed us to implement valuable programs and hire additional staff, it was never intended as a permanent funding source, which is why we are not now faced with making some of those difficult reductions. Our current projections for this year and 2 subsequent fiscal years show a deficit, which now requires our action to ensure our district's long-term fiscal stability. As we navigate these challenges, we're trying to be guided by 2 principles. And I think this will be something that I know is going to come up through the discussion, even through input, because I think, number one, that ability for us to allocate our resources where student needs are greatest. I think that obviously has been the number one priority, and then maintaining essential services that directly impact student achievement. I think it's important to note as we go through what we're presenting this evening, as far as those proposals, and again, I want to be very clear that these are proposals. The positions that are being considered for reduction, not all of them are necessarily funded through one-time dollars. In tonight's proposal, that you'll see that we have prioritized maintaining 2 mental health therapist positions and our elementary intervention support, which clearly are 2 areas where students' needs, we believe, are greatest. Keeping these essential services, of course, means making reductions in other areas. While I know that these are difficult decisions, we as a district do have a fiduciary responsibility that requires us to take action to correct the ongoing deficit spending in which we currently find ourselves. The recommendations that we're presenting this evening to the board reflect consideration of both our fiscal obligations and our commitment to student success. But that said, I'm now going to ask Chief Rogerman, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to really walk us through some of those proposals and give a little bit more information and rationale behind each of them. Chief Rogerman.
Thank you, Dr. Adamson. I'm Buck Rogerman, the Chief Human Resources Officer for PGUSD. And just want to echo the words that you gave about just how difficult the recommendations are to all of us in the room, and talk a little bit about the considerations that guided the decisions that were made to bring these recommendations forward. First of all, when we're looking at the considerations, we're looking at the ones that are budgetary in nature. At the first interim report in the month of October, the district was facing an $868,000 deficit to the unrestricted general fund. This is the key number when we're looking at the deficit, because this is the fund that relies on a continuing source of funding to come in to help us keep a balanced budget. Currently, the budget is not balanced, that we are facing a deficit of $868,000. Another one of the budgetary concerns that we have is the expiration of one-time funding. Some of the positions that we're going to be talking about here this evening are funded through one-time funds. Some of them were funded out of the general fund, and then when one-time funding became available, where we would be able to fund those services under one-time funding, we adopted that funding in nature. And once those funds begin to expire, the unrestricted general fund has to take them on again. And then the third factor with the budget is that we're looking at multiple years of deficit spending, which is leading us to the point where we are this evening. When we're looking at staffing, as far as the conversation goes, we're looking to match the staffing to our student needs. Dr. Adamson alluded to that in some of her opening comments. We also are looking to staff according to the contractual class goals and not the maximum class sizes. So when we're looking at the reduction of staff at any of our sites, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we can maintain staffing levels that would be sufficient to maintain the goals that are written into the contract and not staff all the way to the maximum. And then thirdly, we're also looking at a reduction in the goods and services expenditures that the district has. As far as the adjustments to the budget that we're looking at here tonight, what we're looking at are reductions as well as additions, and then also additions using existing funds to offset the contribution to the general fund. So what's going to be presented here this evening are going to be a series of reductions to help us address that $870,000 structural deficit that we have, but we're also going to be looking at additions that we need to make at some of our sites in order to ensure that we can meet student needs for those programs. And then we're also going to look to see areas where we currently have contracts for services, where we could eliminate the contract for services and hire staff using the money that's currently being spent on those contract for services. Just want to let folks in the room and folks on line know that when you see the funding amounts that are attached to either the reductions or the additions, what you're looking at is a figure that represents the salary as well as the statutory benefits. And so what that means is the contribution to healthcare, as well as the contribution to the state retirement system in the case of the state teachers' retirement system in case of the certificated staff, and then also the public employee retirement system when we are looking at our classified staff. The goods and services reduction that we've been charged with is a minimum of a 3% reduction to all department budgets. That minimum standard that we're looking at would result in a savings of $131,000. All of the departments are going to make as much of a cut as we possibly can. So 3% isn't the goal, it's the floor. That each of the departments that are going to be looking at making cuts are going to try to exceed that 3% limit to the greatest extent that we can. As we work through the budget development process, we are going to be looking to cut any extraneous expenditures that we currently have so that we can alleviate the pressure on the budget deficit and then retain as much staff as possible. In terms of the reductions that are being recommended, first of all, at the district or itinerant level, the first is taking our principal on special assignment and reassigning the principal officially to be the assistant principal at the high school. Currently, the principal on special assignment is serving as the principal of the high school, but this reassignment would result in a savings of approximately $9,000. The other itinerant position that we're looking at is the digital learning teacher position. That is a position that provides digital lessons including STEAM lessons to our students in grades K through 8. As well as adding support at the district level for our director of education. This position also was integral in the design of the Flex Labs and kind of the conversion of a computer lab model at our sites to a more flexible learning center so that true STEAM lessons could be taught as opposed to digital lessons where students walk into a lab and sit at a program at a computer and experience technology that way. These are more hands-on lessons that are taught in a small group setting that use technology as the hook into the lesson, and then also teach our students some 21st century learning skills. In terms of the reductions at the elementary school, we're looking at a 4.0 FTE reduction in classroom teachers. Once again, the letters FTE stand for full-time equivalent, and this would result in a savings of $511,000. And again, these are across both of the elementary schools in the district. The second item on there is a 1.0 full-time equivalent reduction of the elementary Spanish teacher. The elementary Spanish program serves grades 4 and 5 throughout the district. And each of the classrooms receives 2 full 45-minute Spanish lessons every week. Once again, it's serving grades 4 and 5 at both of our schools. And that reduction results in $139,907 in a reduction. Number 3, we're also looking at a 1.7 reduction in the instructional assistants at the elementary level. 0.375 of that reduction that's been recommended is a current vacancy, and the intention of the district would be to leave that vacancy unfilled, and then also reduce the current level of instructional assistant staffing by 1.35 in terms of assignment. And it would look at reducing those hours of instructional aid time equally at both school sites. It equates to approximately a 5-hour reduction at each site for the instructional assistants. Number 4, there is a 1.0 reduction in the itinerant mental health therapist. This mental health therapist is listed as itinerant because this person serves both Robert Down and Forest Grove. So we have one mental health therapist currently that serves both of our elementary sites, and that reduction would result in a $178,626 reduction. When we're looking at the reductions at the secondary level, the first one that is being recommended is a 0.60 full-time equivalent reduction of a classroom teacher. When you're looking at a fractional reduction at the secondary level, what you're looking at is a number of sections that are going to be reduced from the master schedule. And so at the middle school, this would result in 3 sections and a total of $77,695. If someone's teaching a 1.0, that is 5 sections under our current contract. A 5-section assignment equals a 1.0 full-time equivalent. So the recommendation at the middle school is a 0.60 full-time equivalent reduction, which equals 3 sections. Number 2 is a 2.0 FTE reduction in the mental health therapist. Currently, there is 1 full-time mental health therapist that serves the middle school, and there's another 1.0 mental health therapist that serves the high school. The combined reduction amounts to $363,443 at the secondary school level. In terms of additions, the first category that we're going to look at are the itinerant personnel. One of the things that has occurred this year is there are teachers that are nearing their caseload maximum. And so the district has identified a need for a 1.0 full-time equivalent special education teacher, which would result in an addition of $157,873. The idea would be that this itinerant special ed teacher would have the ability to take on the caseloads of teachers when their caseloads look as though they're approaching the maximum. It also would help us balance out the caseloads at the beginning of the school year as well. This special education teacher would be able to serve any of the sites that are in the district that required a reduction in the caseload. We're looking at additions at the elementary school. It's a 1.0 full-time equivalent intervention teacher, and this is the result of an expiration of one-time funding. Currently, one of the intervention teachers at the elementary school is being funded out of one-time funding that we received through the COVID learning recovery funds. This teacher was funded out of the unrestricted general fund before COVID struck. When the COVID funding allowed us to address learning loss in our students, we were able to code this intervention teacher to those one-time funds. With the expiration of the one-time funding, the unrestricted general fund is going to assume this cost so that we can maintain the level of intervention services that are available at the elementary level. We're looking at an addition at the high school. We're looking at a 1.0 full-time equivalent classroom teacher, so we can reduce the number of staff that are currently teaching a one-time or a 1.2 full-time equivalent at the high school. A 1.2 full-time equivalent. Remember, when we're looking at the high school or the middle school, we're looking at sections that equal a full-time equivalent assignment. So while a full-time assignment is 5 sections, there are a number of teachers, 9, that are currently teaching a 1.2 full-time equivalent at the high school. That means that they're teaching 6 sections instead of 5. And the intent of this classroom teacher would be to add another person to the high school staff so that we could reduce the number of our high school teachers that are teaching a 1.2 full-time equivalent. The reason why the addition is $58,506 is because basically what we would be doing is replacing, we would be taking 5 of those teachers that are teaching a 1.2, reducing that to a 1.0 for all of them to come up with the 1.0 assignment. The cost of hiring a new person is $58,000 more than maintaining 1.2 assignments for those 5 teachers. In other words, if we hire another person and bring that person on board so that our teachers will not have to teach 1.2 assignments, there is an increase in cost of approximately $58,000 to alleviate that pressure on the high school staff. Now I would like to turn things over to Executive Director Yolanda Court-Anthony to talk a little bit about the district's approach to mental health therapists as we move forward based on these recommendations.
Thank you, Chief Roderman. Good evening, trustees. Before I speak to this cost neutral restructuring plan, I think this is probably a slide we can do later, but so I wanted to talk about first and foremost, the current work that our counselors, along with our mental health therapists and our school counselors do to support mental health. This is really a team approach to everyone that supports them. And I just want to highlight some of the current things that are in place and what they do. Thank you for that slide. So in our current structure, we have like tiers of support, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And tier 1 basically means it's all the activities that really foster positive social, emotional skills for all of our students, whether they're at risk for mental health challenges or not. So this is what we call universal supports. Our tier 2 supports are like our targeted intervention, there's crisis management follow-up, the counseling that's more intensive, And it's groups like social, friendship, anxiety groups, sometimes working with students that are, parents are experiencing divorce. So it's a short-term counseling, 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the need of the student. So within our school counselors and that structure, they are our tier 1 and our tier 2 support. At the elementary level, they do provide individual and group counseling. They do lunch groups. They do social emotional learning, classroom lessons. They're using piloting second step program. And so they're in all the classes with the teachers and the students. They collaborate a lot with our families and with external agencies like Ohana. They provide parent workshops, and they also do check-ins. At our secondary level, at middle school, they also do individual and group counseling. They do lunch groups. They have a group that supports our LGBTQ plus there as well. They have embedded SEL within the advisory. And then at our high school, there's tier 1 counseling support. And there's also with our outreach counselor, 504 coordinator that provides some of that tier 2 support for students. They all at some point collaborate with external agencies. They all do student check-ins, and they're all available for crisis support, as well as doing wellness activities, which is what wellness activities is a tier 1 support for them. So with our mental health therapists, they really focus in on the tier 1, tier 2, and the tier 3. And at the elementary level, they're also, again, doing those groups as well, lunch groups, collaborating with families, outside agencies, probably more so than our school counselors. They are definitely doing student check-ins with all students. They're part of crisis. They do a lot of crisis follow-up. And they do sometimes assist with tier 1. It just depends on which site it is. And there's various levels at different sites. And then we also have in our groups our school psychologists who also support at our sites. So they're, part of teams. They're doing check-in with students as well. They're collaborating with teachers on strategies and offering support as well. So there's this a circle of support for our students, as you see there. So in collaboration with regarding students with IEPs, right now the current structure is that we have services through Monterey County Behavioral Health. And that's an outside agency that provides services for mental health services for students on IEP. So that's part of our external agency that we help support our students on IEPs. So if we talk about a restructuring plan, what we're looking at in terms of our school counselors is really to continue as to how they currently function, not adding more to their plate, continue with their working in groups and counseling and individual and group and classroom lessons, supporting 504s, collaborate with families. Same thing at the middle school and the high school. What that support looks like in terms of supporting students without IEPs, we'll consider that level of support. And at Pacific Grove Middle School, they have a relationship with Ohana, and so hopefully we'll continue that contract for next year as well. And in terms of tier 1, 2, 3, again, school counselors, that won't change. They still will be part of SSTs. They still will do check-ins. Those levels of support will change. What we're looking at restructuring is that we have this contract with Monterey County Behavioral Health. And they currently, when I look at their scheduling and the students they see and the number of students they see, I'm looking at this really basically about 60% of the time just really spent servicing students on IEP. So there's room, and at the other piece of that is fiscally that what we contract out for is about $358,000. So to supplant that with actually having our own mental health therapist, which has always still continues to be my dream, like have our own people in the house, because there's a lot more coordination when we're working with outside agencies that are behind the scene. So would love to bring on 2 mental health therapists to support our students with IEPs and still continuing the support they also provide to students without IEPs. And back to the circle of support here, I want to acknowledge, at the root is our teachers. They're tier 1. Students are coming to them first. Then we look at our counselors who provide tier 1 and 2 support. We're looking at our school counselors who do all tiers, and then our mental health therapists who tier 2 and 3. And surrounding the students at all tiers, as you see, the site administrators that support at all levels from their needs. So I just, again, want to acknowledge that this is the circle of support that we provide our students, we'll continue to provide our students. We'll continue to look for opportunities to work with and explore working with agencies, specifically with, we're reaching out to the colleges to see if we can have interns brought on to also offer additional mental health support to our students as well. Okay, thank you. Our next slide, I think, will be Assistant Soup. Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to cover the fiscal impact here related to everything that was just discussed by Director Cork Anthony and Chief Rogerman. In response to the district's ongoing efforts to address the year-over-year deficit spending, as discussed by Dr. Adamson initially, Chief Rogerman, the staff's been working through the 25-26 budget development process to achieve a 3% or higher reduction in all expenditures for the 25-26 year. That's our next school year. With the district's total combined expenditures projected to be just around $50 million next year, and our unrestricted expenditures expected to be in excess of $39 million, the district's goal is to reduce approximately $1,652,922 to provide immediate relief to the unrestricted general fund. You can see that on the slide, bullet 2. I should again note that the projected deficit that I'm speaking about this year, the $868,148, is only a projection, and it was a projection at first interim. First interim is from July 1st through October 31st. We're now in February. Merely a projection at that time, which is a couple of months old. The 24-25 projected deficit at first interim will be evaluated once again during the second interim reporting, which is done in March 20th. And unfortunately, projections at this time are indicating a higher deficit this year. The 2025 deficit will also compound into 25-26 with step and column, increases to staffing FTE, and potential additional classrooms with military families moving in during the fall and in the spring of next year, which is something that this district experiences regularly. This is why the district is targeting $1,247,075, which is the net savings, and not the projected 24-25 deficit of $868,000 at first interim. It's important to note that no reductions have been proposed for Special Education Resource 6500. Director Cork Anthony just discussed how we were going to shift some of the funding around. And that's important because that would not increase the district's unrestricted general fund contribution to special education. The district's unrestricted general fund contribution to special education over the last 3 years has went up almost $2.5 million to just under $8 million. And it's going to be just over $8 million next year, as our projections show. Additionally, the recommendations of 25-26 additions, as you can see here, to the unrestricted general fund of $378,847 are being included. The net fiscal impact of the reductions and additions is expected to yield $1,247,075 in savings to the unrestricted general fund for 25-26. The reduction is a key step in aligning our expenditures with projected revenues, and we're working toward a balanced and sustainable budget. Finally, I do want to emphasize that the staffing additions and reductions were carefully considered in collaboration with our sites and our site admin teams. The ultimate goal here is to place the district in a position to develop a revenue neutral budget for 25-26, and that's not something this district has had in a number of years. There are 2 important unknowns that still remain, and I think it's important to share those tonight. If elementary 25-26 enrollment numbers increase between May registration and October 2025 start of school, the district may once again be able to hire teachers and staff to align with enrollment. Revenue actuals for the 24-25 year have been underperforming, and projections at this point in time, revenue is underperforming by $175,000 less than projected. That's where we're at right now. We won't know those totals until the end of the fiscal year, which won't be reported to this board until September of 2025. So should either or both of those 2 issues occur, the district may once again be faced with potential deficit spending in 25-26. I would like to thank everyone that participated in this process and the understanding as we navigate these difficult financial decisions. And I would now like to turn it back over to Dr. Adamson for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Assistant Soup John. So I think just a few things before I know we're going to open up to public comment and then really, ask for the board to sort of weigh in and discuss and give a chance to answer questions as well. But, I think number one, how it began, right? How hard this is. But again, our ability to be able to look at where we are fiscally, responsible decisions, and we have to make some hard and tough decisions as a result of that. Chief Rogerman had indicated in his part of the presentation that, the 3% reductions that we're looking at through other expenses, that is, we absolutely have, our intention is to exceed that 3%. And that is really the process that we'll be following through the budget development process to look at every possible expense where we can make those reductions in the coming weeks and months. So three things I just want to make mention of that is, that everyone has in their minds. I think number one, that yes, every area of the budget will be examined. We are, actively engaging. I know that at our sites, staff are sharing some of their, creative ideas on, what they anticipate and what they are seeing that we could possibly, be additional suggestions. So I know that we are, working actively with them and seeking some of those. Some were shared during the site visits that we did over the last 3 weeks. We went out to meet with our staff, but I know that we'll be seeking more of those. And then I think the other thing that, I want to be said, when we're looking at staff reductions, it seems hard to think about salary increases. So I think this is one of the reasons why our entire management team has agreed to take a 1-year freeze on all step and column advancements. So that is an additional piece that we'd be, taking on from the management side of it. So as I turn it over to our trustees, on that final slide that, was up, there were, 3 final closing pieces that I really want you to keep in mind as you're making these decisions. And that would be number 1, financial sustainability, student-centered prioritization, and then long-term viability would be the 3 components we really need to consider. And I just think as we regardless of where we land tonight and the direction you give us, if you're going to say to us, you want us to come back with additional proposals, let's see where that goes. I think the important thing for us to know is that bottom line, this needs to be a wake-up call for us as a district. We absolutely, as we are planning budgetary, the budget for next year and the long term, the 5 to 7 year outlook from here, as we're considering programs and looking at where our expenditures are, we absolutely need to take a hard look at, where those funds are going. And as we plan ahead, make decisions in accordance with staffing and programming that is sustainable. Right? I think the reason we're here today and having to make these decisions is because, how that funding has been spent in the past has not been sustainable. And I know we keep saying it, the one-time funding, but that is a reality that is going away. And so we are being forced to really, make some adjustments there. And is this it, what we're proposing tonight? We're open to, additional ideas and suggestions with that, but the reasons are grave. And, that's how we'll be moving forward with it. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to you, Dr. Hazen, for
Great. So really quickly, before we go public comment, I will apologize to a student trustee. I forgot you again at our the consent agenda. So just to give you a thought, you don't have to do anything now, but I'm going to give you just the option if you want to speak first or last on the board, because this is a tough item. So think about that when it comes after public comment. I'm happy to have you go last if that's what you prefer. So with that, we're going to open public comment. Just remember the 3 minutes per item, 20 minutes total that can be extended by the board. Should it go? So you go ahead, please, and line up. We'll go again online and in person back and forth. So why don't we go ahead and start in person?
Thank you. The PGTA negotiations team urges the board to direct staff to explore all long-term budget solutions to secure the district's financial health for the foreseeable future. We encourage the district to consider cost-saving measures such as elementary school reconfiguration, adjusting school boundary lines, and reassessing professional development consulting fees. Just as teachers are continually asked to do more with fewer resources, district management should also share in the responsibility. The board should explore innovative solutions, such as having district management serve as summer school administrator rather than spending another $10,000 on a stipend. Additionally, district leadership should critically evaluate the professional development offered to teachers, ensuring these opportunities are truly relevant to 21st century teaching and learning. Let's work together to explore creative, systemic change to ensure the health of the district budget and support our students. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. If I can ask too, if one of the snaps instead of claps, just because it'll help to keep motion. Want you to show support, but just to keep us going, because we have a lot of people. Please go right ahead. There's no one online right now, so we'll come back online if anyone raises their hand.
I would like to provide a student's perspective on the mental health systems at the school currently, and if you do proceed with reductions to these essential services, the increased strain that will put on these current systems. I have the most experience. Most of my experience is with Miss Cordova, and she has been instrumental in helping me reach who I am today. As a member of the queer community, I have seen the good these programs do. The student population is frequently struggling with issues at home, their identities, and interpersonal conflict. I was struggling through freshman and sophomore year, and without Miss Cordova's support, I would not have been at a place where I could mentally contribute to the PGHS community. My work as a member of the robotics team and as the Rainbow Alliance president would be diminished, if not non-existent, without her support. These achievements influenced the high school community and my ability to get into college. I am one of the lucky ones. There are people in worse situations than me who benefit and rely on the school's counseling services. Giving students a place to find coping mechanisms is extremely important. After the COVID-19 pandemic, I struggled with anxiety that continues to affect my life today. Ms. Cordova gave me a space to understand and tools to cope with my anxiety. The pandemic still affects everyone who went through it, and it is important to acknowledge it will have a lasting impact on children who went through it, making it all the more important to keep our existing mental health services. I implore you to care for the health of students in this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Still no one online? Please go right ahead. Next person.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Hold that for you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Charlie, and I'm a third grade student at Forest Grove Elementary. This evening, I'm here to speak out against budget cuts throughout PG Unified School District. I feel that cutting teachers will have a really negative impact on me and my peers. For example, Mr. Bradley, who teaches me about coding and logic, which I feel like I'm going to need my entire life. Some of those things he uses are code.org or mini robots, which aren't only fun, but he also learns some really cool stuff with them. For example, the last thing that we did with him was learn how to code little computers called microbits. It was really fun, and I learned some really cool stuff in the process. And a lot of the stuff someone in this very room can make a career out of. For these reasons, I feel that budget cuts in the district are a really bad idea.
Thank you for your comments so much. Anyone online, Lewis? If I don't see your hand, I'll assume it's a 0. So yeah, we'll keep going. Thank you so much.
Members of the board, I stand before you as a concerned parent based on the proposed budget cuts, some of which are claimed to be due to COVID relief funding ending, which we have known for years will be the case and should have made a better plan for as a district. At least one of the positions being proposed to be cut, the digital learning teacher position, was created pre-pandemic 7 years ago, and as such was not established with COVID funding. I do understand the need to remain fiscally responsible with the budget, which at times requires difficult decisions to be made. However, I urge you to carefully consider the impact these cuts will have on our students and district. In the last year, there have been several articles that have painted the district in a negative light. In the few positive articles that have discussed PGUSD, it has been in regards to our innovative ed-tech spaces as well as the STEAM programs. What is it that sets Pacific Grove Unified apart if we remove the things that are unique to it and that we are being recognized for? We know the community of PG is such a key factor in our wonderful schools, but the fact remains that our enrollment is declining. So what sets us apart for a new family trying to select the best place to settle? We all know the costs of this area continue to increase and our facilities continue to grow more and more outdated. Monte Vista Elementary is the closest to us, with families being able to purchase cheaper housing right across David Avenue. They have year-over-year capped enrollment. They use the same English curriculum with all the same, and in some cases, more opportunities for students to shine through robust club options and competitive choir and robotics programs. We already see that at the high school level, we lose PG-raised students each year to Monterey High to take part in programs not offered here. Students and families are seeking educational experiences to push their students forward, and as we have seen, will move to areas that offer what they're seeking. We need to capitalize on the specialty areas that we do have to engage and keep our families and students. By keeping these programs than no other school has at the elementary level, it shows that the district prioritizes fostering a robust education from a child's foundation. An argument is being made that we need to cut these proposed positions in order to prioritize funding for interventions. I agree that interventions are important, but what are we doing to push our excelling students on so that they do not become complacent learners? What do we offer to challenge them and get them thinking creatively? Furthermore, what opportunities for success are we offering our students who find academics challenging? What are we doing to prioritize these students besides removing programs like STEAM and Spanish where they could shine and build skills for the future? I urge you to consider the long-term outlook. We need our programs like STEAM and Spanish at the elementary level for all types of learners and to stay competitive as a district. Our STEAM class alone impacts the education of 721 students year-long at the elementary and more at community high, and our Spanish program sets all of our 4th and 5th grade students in the district up with a strong foundation before they enter middle school. Keep our programs for our youngest learners and get creative to find a financial solution to the funding issues we were aware of years ago.
Thank you so very much for your comments. And it looks like we have one person quickly online. Looks like Dr. Pell.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I want to agree, first of all, with the previous speaker about the importance of these two particular programs that have been slated to be cut and the value that they've added to the district. I know it was something I think like 5 or 6 years ago, the first time I remember coming to a board meeting, and it was actually to speak in favor of adding Spanish programs at the elementary level. And that was a really long and hard fought victory that we have just started to implement. And it was something that we prioritized, I think, because we understood what an advantage it is to our students to be bilingual or to have the ability to gain that skill, and how critical it is to get exposure to foreign language at a young age. It's just impossible to learn it as easily if you don't begin to middle school or high school. And secondly, with the digital, the STEM lab teacher, that program in the Flex Lab, I think has really been such an innovative and incredibly valuable program to the students. And I know that was listed as a district position, but cutting that position really does affect students, because that's a teacher who's, in the classroom working face-to-face with the students, and giving them skills that are, really in demand, as well as just really engaging and keeping the students enjoying being at school. I know also, I believe that we received Measure B funding to do work on that particular space in the STEM lab. And so it, I'd wonder what we are going to do with having money to build up the space if we don't have the most important part of that program, which of course is the staff, the teacher. So I know it's difficult financial times and really difficult decisions. I appreciate that. And I thank you for your hard work trying to find a solution, and just urge you to please consider creative solutions. Please listen to the recommendations from the teachers and staff, who I think really have great ideas, and they're the ones who are there in the classroom with the kids day after day, and try to find solutions that don't remove programs and teachers who are bringing such value to our students face-to-face every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and we'll go back in person now to Ms. Fruden.
Good evening. My name is Sonda Fruden. I'm the school counselor at Robert Down. I'm very concerned about the massive cuts to mental health in our district. I understand that there's a budget deficit and you're all doing quite a bit to figure that out. But removing mental health is not just irresponsible, it's a decision that will directly impact our students. It places our students at risk, increases absenteeism due to mental health challenges, and increases behavioral challenges for our teachers, which directly affects the learning of other students. Over the years, your elementary school counselors' responsibilities have increased. We are now your 504 coordinators. That takes a lot of time. We provide social and emotional learning lessons twice monthly to all of our K through 5 students. We support parents and students in need and organize special programs throughout the year. By removing mental health therapists, our school counseling programs will have to focus solely on students with high needs. Prevention will be a thing of the past, and we will be meeting the needs of students moment to moment, a Band-Aid, so to speak. Your school counselors are not mental health therapists. We are preventionists. Our work is not just about addressing crises, but about preventing them. Over the past 2 years, the district's value on mental health saved lives. Countless mental health interventions have occurred. I would seriously continue your conversations about the decision to remove mental health therapists from our schools. COVID might be over, but California's youth experienced the second largest increase in depression and anxiety among all states last year. We are in a youth mental health crisis. In 2020, 14% of youth recorded a major depressive episode. In 2024, that went up to 19%. In 2020, 22% of youth reported having an anxiety disorder. In 2024, it went up to 27%. How can you remove mental health therapists from our schools when there is upward trend of both depression and anxiety in our youth? It's not enough to have therapists for just our high needs students with IEPs. Mental health affects all populations, and it truly baffles me that we're continuing to have this conversation. We were on the right track for a while. I do agree with what Yolanda shared about having our mental health, county mental health or mental health therapists for all of our IEP students in-house. I think that's should have happened a long time ago. But removing the mental health therapists for the general population is a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I think we have Mr. Gibbs online as well. Next comment.
Thank you. This is Mike Gibbs. I don't have a lot to say other than appreciate the work of the staff and Dr. Adamson making very difficult decisions. It's great to see the kids that are impacted or concerned about friends speaking out. It's absolutely critical. I don't have any ideas or suggestions other than there may be money coming from the federal government. That remains to be seen. I would suggest, if it hasn't already been done, contacting our representative, Jimmy Panetta, and he's probably aware of this already, but positioning Pacific Grove Unified for any federal funding or block grants that would be coming to the state and to the local districts. It's a proactive action, doesn't cost anything, and it may have been taken already. If it has, it's the right thing to do. This is about people, and it's always difficult, but I spend 30 years in business addressing these kind of issues, and there's also a cost to process. If it's not been done, some analysis of process within the school district takes a lot of time, takes up money, takes up budget. Process, I mean, the budgeting processes or the contracting processes or any processes that allocate resources to maintaining, acquiring, and operating. There's a lot of cost in the actual process itself, taking out waste or taking out steps that are not productive. Maybe is not the first step, but I'm sure it's somewhere on the agenda. And there are plenty of people here in Pacific Grove who could help with that on a volunteer basis. So good luck with this, and it's a tough decision. Thank you for facing it right now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We'll go back in person in the room.
Hi, I am Lauren Davis. I am the resource teacher at Robert Down, and I am sharing the lead negotiator role with Mary Quindwell. PGTA recognizes the district is facing a challenging budget year. However, nearly all proposed personnel cuts target certificated staff, our teachers. Cuts should be as far away from the classroom as possible. School district budget cuts are falling hardest on those who work directly with our students, the teachers, support staff, and specialists who shape the future of our children every single day. Time and time again, when budgets get tight, the cuts come from the bottom up, not the top down. The very people who nurture, educate, and guide our students are asked to do more with less. Larger class sizes, fewer resources, and reduced support. We urge the board to direct staff to explore cuts to management so that the impact is shared across all levels of the district, not just by teachers and those working most closely with students. We cannot afford to balance budgets on the backs of our students and those who serve them. Every position lost, every program cut, and every resource diminished takes away from the quality of education our children deserve. If we truly value education, we must demand a budget that reflects those values, one that prioritizes students and the educators who stand beside them every day. Let's work together to ensure that our schools are places of growth, not sacrifice. Our students deserve nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We have one more person online. I think Lisa is the name. My eyes aren't failing me.
It's Lisa, yes, thank you. I'm Lisa Ogburn. I am a special education teacher in the district, and I just first want to say that it's very commendable that special education spending in the district has gone up considerably over the last 2 years. And as a teacher in the classroom, I do feel that I have all the materials and software and hardware that I need to support my students, and that's recognized, and I see that. I also see the caseload numbers creeping very close to 28, which is the legal limit. And an itinerant special education teacher makes a lot of sense on the surface. But when I think about how that would function, I'm concerned. My first year here in the district, I was an itinerant elementary school teacher between Forest Grove and Robert Down, and it was very difficult getting to know the teachers effectively and in a way that I felt like I could really support and understand what was happening in the classroom. And case management is about 25% of what we do as special education teachers. The remaining 75% is boots on the ground. It's observing the student in the general education setting, collaborating, creating academic supports like graphic organizers, scaffolded instruction, and targeted intervention, and working directly with the student. So my concern is who will work with these students? Who is going to provide the services that to the students, I have a hard time with that word, but the mobile special education teacher case manages. There's a reason there's a state limit of 28, because it's not reasonable to ask a teacher to effectively support more than 28 students with their special education needs. And as having been an itinerant teacher, it's very difficult to establish the relationships in multiple schools, the relationships that are needed to really support that student. I think an itinerant special education teacher to handle some of the case management makes a lot of sense, but it raises a concern, which I feel is real and valid and needs to be addressed before this position is staffed. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. And we'll come back in the room. Mr. Richmond. Yeah.
Sally Richmond, Pacific Grove High School. I have many thoughts that I would like to share, but since I am limited to the 3 minutes, I will say that I am asking the board not to make any decisions or directions today. Specifically, we were told that this would be an open and transparent process. This is the first time that we've heard the plan. We were able to look at the one-page summary of it on Friday. So I would ask that the PGTA and CSEA be given time to think about what we've heard and come up with our own recommendations. I don't believe that you should be hearing only from the district office, but that you should be hearing from everyone in the community. So that's my request, that you hold off on any decisions. We were told that there would be a meeting in 2 weeks, and then a decision would not be made until the beginning of March. And so even if you could hold off for 2 weeks, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We're at the 20-minute mark. I'll look to the board. Is there anyone that would like to make, actually, I'll go ahead and move that we extend by another 20 minutes, public
I'll
comment.
second that.
Okay, all in favor? I should say student trustee. Are you in favor of extending the public comment? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark W. Clark. I'm the Pacific Grove Middle School Spanish teacher, and I'm coming here to advocate to keep the Spanish teacher position at the elementary school. It's no secret that we're living in an increasingly globalized world where Spanish is the second most spoken language in the United States. In California, it will become the most spoken language within the next 2 decades. Bilingualism is important for a number of reasons, especially in a school district where we are valuing cultural proficiency, in addition to improving job prospects for students later in life, and cutting Spanish programs would flat out put our students at a disadvantage. Additionally, the academic and cognitive benefits of studying a second language are well documented, well known, and starting at a younger age has shown more favorable outcomes for students. Additionally, students who are bilingual have better multitasking skills and overall brain function. Additionally, I touched on this about being a point of equity and inclusion. We have many students in our district who come from Spanish-speaking backgrounds, and it's important for them to see representation in the curriculum, including in our Spanish classroom. Cutting these programs could alienate them, also limit their opportunities, and especially with our heritage learners and connecting with their heritage and connecting with their culture. Schools should be looking to expand language access and not reducing it. I think that it would be a major step backwards for PGUSD to eliminate the Spanish teacher at the elementary school. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Clark. No one online, Mr. Rivera.
Justin Rivera, I'm one of the parents. I have 2 children in the system, one in high school and one that will be entering Robert Down next year. I have severe reservations about a reduction in staff. I echo the concerns of everyone here, and I really am still left with a lot of questions as to exactly what this is going to mean. You presented us some beautiful numbers on the budget, but what's the student staffing actually going to look like? What do those caseload numbers per counselor, per individual actually look like? You've mentioned that we want to tailor this to the students, and we've mentioned that there's a reduction in enrollment, but what do the percentages look like? I work in corporate America as a manager, and I know hard decisions sometimes have to be made. And if the percentages in terms of staffing to each individual student, if the result of this budget proposal is that there is no actual quality of education reduction, I might be forced to agree with it, but I would really ask that every alternative be explored first. When I lived in Chicago, we actually picked a school district within Chicago Public School that was a cluster magnet school. So you lived in the area, but other students wanted to go there from around the entire city. And the reason that school was so phenomenal was its teachers and the parents that were working together. Every year we fundraised as a school and supported 3 elementary school teachers with the fundraising. And when I say explore every possibility, that should be a last resort, but it is one that I am happy to explore if there are no alternatives. I want the best future for my child. I want them to be competitive with Europe, with multiple languages in math and science. And cutting funding is the wrong way to go.
Thank you for your comments. Yes, please. Next in person.
Hello, I'm Christine Gruber. I am the librarian at Forest Grove. I have no notes. I had no intention to speak, but when I saw the circle for the mental health thing, and it said teacher. And as classified, we actually have a lot of kids who come to us with their problems because we are consistent year after year with those kids. They see us. They come into the library. I have somebody in here's daughter who comes in every day and says, "Hi, bestie." I have somebody's granddaughters who fight over whose favorites, they are. We are their consistent. I remember one year where people were complaining about this girl acting up on the bus. And I said, well, wait, did you know that she's about to be taken away from her adopted parents because there's somebody cross country who is an aunt or uncle that are going to take them away now? We get told things on the playground that they don't hear about from the teachers, or the teachers aren't told these things. We're a constant. We are important. And we're a safety net for those kids because they see us. Also, these aides work so hard. They take stuff home. They help each other out. And we're needed on the playground. We don't have enough eyes every day at Forest Grove as it is. And so we can't lose another one. If somebody calls in sick, we're stuck. We just are. So it's a hard case as it is. I don't know what we're going to do without another set of eyes at lunchtime. I don't know what the plan is. Who's going to be watching the students? That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, and go next here in the room.
Excuse me. I spent the last 2 years as TOSA, where I thought it was rough being a substitute bouncing from classroom to classroom each day. And then I went back in the classroom and realized I'd forgotten how rough it was being a full-time teacher. The classroom's a lot harder than before. Students have been through a lot. The first day back in my own classroom, the first student came in and declared, "Hi, I'll be with the counselor for the rest of the day. It was nice meeting you." The student who runs into the classroom and notes, "I have to see the counselor now." There are students who I will go months without seeing. At times, it seems every student in class either needs help or to leave class. Students daily leave class to go to the bathroom and catch their breath. Classwork is the last thing they're concerned with, which makes grading challenging, particularly contacting home. I have to contact parents and guardians who see their children struggling, and now their students' history teachers concerned about their progress in learning Unit 2, the Industrial Revolution. Sometimes I get email responses that would be in clear violation of the PGHS handbook, making teaching even more difficult. The most recent difficulty is imagining a school with less counselors and teachers. I truly have no idea how that would work. Students who are in need of emotional support would have less help. Teachers who are already tired, and if they're anything like me, leave work sometimes feeling defeated, would now have more students. And I want to point out that Mr. Bradley not only teaches, but is the go-to for any digital assistance or program in the district, which at times feels like every program. I do not understand the logic. Everyone in this room claims that students are the priority, yet the people who deal with them day in, day out are now being asked to do more with less. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Dieter, I think you're up next.
Good evening. I had every intention of not speaking tonight, yet here I am. My name is Sherry Dieter. I serve as the head teacher of Pacific Grove Community High School. Our culture of we needs to include students who have fallen through the cracks at multiple stages of their careers in this district. They work to complete their high school education as a last resort at community high school. I urge our district to remember that although we're small, we do have 2 high schools in this district. If one more time I hear about the high school, okay, so right, I'm getting emotional. These proposed cuts impact us exponentially. We rely heavily on the digital learning position as we travel to the Flex Lab each year, multiple times. So the statement that it's a K-8 position is not correct. It serves 9th through 12th graders as well. We also rely heavily on the mental health therapist in the district. And when I say heavily, she's a core component. That position is a core component of our daily program. We have 2 full-time teachers that teach the entire curriculum, that create and generate and implement all projects and also write grants. These 2 individuals, these 2 positions complement our program in multiple ways. I urge you to take your time and to review this budget, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. last chance, anyone online or in person that would like to speak? If not, we will go. And again, student trustee, I'll give you the option. Would you like to go first or last? You get to pick. Okay, thank you.
I also wasn't planning on speaking, but I just think that if we really are working on what's best for the students and really care about all the students in this district, budget cuts should not be going towards the people that directly interact with all the students, because the students, like, especially with mental health and all of that, like if you take out mental health and therapists, it's really just going to all fall on the teachers even more. And they already have so much on their plate. So I just think if there's any alternative ways, we should really just get creative with coming up with other ways to avoid cutting out that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Excellent. So I think we'll go to this end of the room with Trustee Wex and then come back towards me if that's okay.
Thank you, Mr. Roderman, for the presentation and all the speakers for your advocacy and stating what you think about the situation. I would also request that the district come back with some more creative solutions. I am very new in this role, so I do not know the legality of anything, but it does seem like we have some sites. I know that there are some deed restrictions on real estate, but we can get creative with doing a long-term lease and getting some revenue from that, as well as perhaps providing housing for the community. I think we can look at, I understand that there's a 3% across the board goal in this first consideration, but I think we should strive, and I know that it's the goal to cut the materials budget as much as possible in the areas, but I think there should be a higher goal to, and not just 3%. Personally, I think we are making some renovations to the David School campus, and I think we should also consider increasing the rent to be more in terms with the market or MBCS, which would be more revenue. And I think all that is to say, the financial situation and the declining enrollment is incredibly worrisome to the long-term prospects for this district. Someone, I think you, maybe, I'm sorry if it's wrong, but we advertised the Measure B as expanding science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, and expanding counseling and mental health facilities. I know that we cannot use this money for salaries, but I do think if we want to maintain the spirit of this bond, we might be able to include some more maintenance funds on these projects to Measure B and save money out of the budget. Again, I know nothing about the specifics. Mr. Jorn is truly a wizard, and the amount of numbers that he throws out is daunting and dizzying to me, and I don't know how he keeps it in track. But I think my goal is to just echo the sentiments of so many people here where I would like to see some more creative options. I also think that I truly respect Dr. Adamson relaying that the management is taking a freeze or is in favor of that. When looking at teachers and management, I think both of y'all are integral. One cannot act without the other. At the same time, if we want to preserve jobs that we do, I think very small reductions into, this is again hypothetical, but people who are 12.5% over the median income in Pacific Grove, if there's a way to save money just to show some solidarity with the students to save some money, I think that sends a message to residents or this resident, as well as teachers, that it's not just the frontline people who are bearing the brunt of this. I will also say, again, I'm talking about cuts and more revenue, but I strangely agree with Mr. Gibbs. I like getting a dig at him every once in a while. I am so, because of my experience with my son's teacher right now, I am like so adamant or in favor of increasing instructional aids for reading in K through 2, because all the statistics show that that sets you up for success. Again, I don't know what the union deals are, but if we had multiple 20-hour workers, that is a cheaper salary, and the outcomes, I think, would pay huge dividends in terms of our goals, our academic goals as a district. And I know this is very tough, and I'd like us to all make space, like the wicked meme, for realizing just how tough it is. And I appreciate everyone's work out in the audience and out in the office. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Schwartz.
Well, I do believe that this district, as long as I've been a part of it, is values counseling. That is a characteristic of this district historically. Historically, if you compare our district before COVID, but if you compare our district to other districts, you would see that we have a higher ratio of counselors to students than most other districts, at least in this county. So we, that's where we sit in values. I do think that when we got the mental health therapists in with the COVID money, there was a great need, of course, for them. And from what I'm hearing, that continues to be a great need. But that does present a problem when you haven't been structurally providing that salary. You used incoming one-time monies, COVID monies, to pay for this, and not knowing maybe that the need was going to be ongoing. So it's a big expense, and there may be some creative ways that we can still provide some of those services without having the same amount of people, but in different ways. And I don't know yet, but I think there are some ways that you can look at how you provide what kind of services are most needed for students. It's hard to know. I have it here in my notes, like, okay, a mental health therapist, where's the greatest need for that? Is it a site, one site more than another, one age more than another? Are there can we access similar services through other agencies? Do they offer something different from the counselors, which I was hearing they do, rather than just adding person power to the existing counseling? Preventative methods, I'm totally for that, and I think that's an avenue that definitely should be enlarged, and but that doesn't cover anything that's existing right now as far as maybe crises that students are going through. So I'm not clear about the mental health therapist, special education, the addition there. Is it a teacher or is it a mental health therapist? I mean, somebody said something about the special ed and I wasn't, it looks here like it's a mental health therapist. Do you?
It's two
Or special ed, but is it a
additions.
teacher?
There's an addition as for a resource, an RSP teacher, so a resource specialist, and that is to serve special ed students. But then the mental health therapist, the two positions that we're proposing retaining, they would serve the needs of both special education and general education.
Okay. Okay, and then the other thing I'll just say is that I totally support AIDS. I don't want to see any AIDS cut. I think AIDS, as Ms. Gruber was saying, you know, they are, you know, that backbone that catches students when no one else sees. And they have a way of just being with students that is different. It's totally different than with the teacher. Students can be more open with someone that they feel is just, you know, their buddy out on the playground. So I definitely, and plus aides help the teachers. I mean, the teachers need the aides. So I'm totally supportive of more aides. I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much. Trustee Otmar.
Is it hot in here, you guys, or what? Like sweating up here. I don't know if it's my nerves or if it's actually hot, but okay, thanks. So I'm gonna start this off by just saying that first and foremost, our obligation should be to the students. And in turn to teachers and aides and those that are directly facing our students. I look at the options that are presented and I'm asking that the district staff bring back options that are not student facing. We cannot say that we value the health and wellness of our students and in the same breath say, but we're going to cut a bunch of stuff. We're cutting mental health. We're cutting aides. We're cutting teachers. We knew this COVID money was going to run out. This is not a secret. We've been deficit spending. I take responsibility for sitting up here and saying, yay, maybe one too many times. And I cannot sit here and be okay with our kids being pushed to the front of the cuts. It's not okay with me. So I'm specifically asking if the board is, it sounds like everyone's on the same page, but I would like to see options that are not student facing. I do want to hear recommendations from staff. So if those are coming, I'm very interested in seeing ideas, creative ideas. I think that people with boots on the ground have a better idea of what's needed than maybe people that are a bit more removed, definitely more than what I would know. I'm questioning what that 3% of materials and supplies looks like. What are we cutting? Is it student-based materials? I support keeping Spanish. I support not touching our STEAM program and keeping digital learning. I support not cutting mental health. I have concerns that the mental health therapists, it says special education right after mental health therapists. Special education needs are high. My fear is that it's going to leave the rest of the students without the mental health therapists that they need. I think that this could have been a little bit more thoughtful when it was brought forward. I don't appreciate a one-page, but I mean, I've read a 1,000-page packet before, and this is one of the most important meetings we're having as a district. And there was one page without a lot of information, which left a lot of people to infer a lot, and it created fear in our district. And I don't really appreciate that either. So I don't know if I should be sitting up here, and I'm not trying to chastise or point fingers at all. I am just simply voicing an opinion. I represent the community. I represent the students. I represent everybody here. I am community appointed. And so I feel like I'm speaking on behalf of just the community in general and also myself. But So I think that that's kind of where I'm at. I don't know what more I could necessarily say, but I am definitely in agreement with what our student rep says. If we're going to be pulling mental health, it's going to put so much more pressure on the teachers. And then at the same time, we're taking away aides. It's just, this is a recipe for disaster as far as health and safety of our students and our staff for that matter. So that's where I'm at. And I'm looking forward to hearing creative solutions that include everybody. Everyone should feel this pinch, not just the people that are serving our students and our students. I do have a question though, and I appreciate that you guys came forward with freezing step and column, but we create another situation there where that's 1 year. It's a beautiful sentiment and I love that that's there, and yes, please do that. But it's 1 year, and okay, it will continue on, but not, a small percentage wise. So while it's appreciated, it's not a viable solution that's going to continue through time. So finding the money, I think we can do it. Finding the money without touching students and without having students feel the pain, I think it's possible if it's creative enough. And I think that what we've been presented with is the opposite of what should have been presented in the first place. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Trustee McNary.
Thank you. I do want to say thank staff for, I think, imparting on this budget adventure, because as a parent, I've sat here and watched lots of meetings and left almost every time with questions about how we were financing things. How did we add this? How did we add that? How is it going to work in the future? And I'm not a finance person, so common sense says if it's a one-time thing, then you're going to have to find another money source. So I thank staff for being willing to take on the budget challenge. And I think this is something as a district that we've been saying for years, is that we structurally deficit spend. And in order to do things differently, we have to take a hard look at what we're doing. So I do think that the intention and the effort is in the right place. And I do think that, with the short timeline that we've tried to turn around, from what I can see, and I hear what you're saying about the unions not seeing this proposal yet, though, that staff has had meetings and admin has had meetings, and they're willing to continue the conversation. So I'm appreciative of that as well. So many important, valid points. For me, this becomes a question of what are our values, and what are we going to cut and what are we going to keep? I think I still have a few outstanding questions that I've heard and I kind of wondered too, and I just want clarification on. So if I could ask, did we look at cutting positions at the district office and management level? I'm getting warm.
Well, I tried opening the window, but there's a gale force out there. I feel like the blinds are going to go flying, aspiring.
Work together.
I mean, the simple answer is no, there's nothing, and so the answer, Trustee McNary, is no, we have not.
Have we considered looking at cuts? I mean, I hear the points about student-centered, focusing on students and avoiding cuts in those areas. So I'm wondering more holistically if there is an opportunity to look at other options. I don't know. Have those options been explored, looking at cuts to management, looking at cuts to the district office staff?
I mean, we considered that obviously and I'm hearing loud and clear that you want us to go back and really look at that. And so that will be the direction I think we're going to take tonight from the board. I think as far as management themselves, if just looking at those pure positions, I think it would be hard for us to determine where it's, we've got one principal at each of our school sites. We've got a principal and an AP at the middle and high school. I can't see middle and high operating without an assistant principal. At the district office level, our directors, we have, one person departments. Already, just examples. If I look at our, educational services department, that's one director with an assistant who, leads all of the work of the district. And I know it's said, we're a small district, but and I've said this, I've talked a little bit about this at our staff meetings, and maybe it's well received, maybe it's not. But the reality of it is that, they, regardless of how many students, the work is the same. If you're doing a pilot program and looking at new curriculum, if it's the LCAP that's being designed, that is all handled. those are massive projects that, yes, in other districts, there is sort of some additional layer of even if it's a coordinator. So I think as we looked at that, just the sheer amount of, work that each of those managers takes on. I know there's been, talk about, we're just even at the district office, then, sort of the different layers of support. And again, I'd say that in the majority of our departments, we don't have that. We, in our HR department and our business department is probably where we have, additional layers where we have, some of our clerical staff and fiscal officers to really, do a lot of the work that's needed. But all there, I refer to just the recent audit that was done by School Services 2 years ago, and they came in and did a thorough evaluation of our district office staffing. What they came out was that we were severely understaffed, and their recommendations were to add additional positions, which we did not do. We did our communications, audit a year ago, which was, requested by the board. And what came from that was, the need for a director of communication, which of course we did not do. So I think, in looking at that, it comes down to, just what the roles and responsibilities are that everyone takes on. Is there an ability for us to look and see if, that we can do something there to reduce? There always is, right? Of course. I think it's just a matter of knowing then that, some of those responsibilities, which I know that we've taken on over the past, at least 2 years from the office staff at the school sites, will ultimately have to, maybe have to be returned, to our office staff, which, that was done to relieve some of that burden, from our school sites. But, that's kind of a long answer to, your answer. Have we done it? And have we? Yes. It's just going to be, hard to determine, where those cuts are. I think ultimately, the way I see it, and it's at the sites as well. Right? Everyone is stretched. There's more responsibility that's been added on to every role, I think, across the district, no matter where that is, if it's at the site or the district office, that people are doing more with less and with less time. Just in education itself, there's just been more reporting, more accountability, components that have been added into the role. And that is even more so at the district office level, when you're looking at business and HR and even our ed services and student services departments. So, it's just a lot of compliance and reporting pieces that are added to the work that's there to support students as well. I think the only other piece I'd add to that as well is, just even within, if I take the last 2 months, we have had, substitutes have been a challenge. And so there are days where, there's a teacher who we cannot fill it at the school sites, and who's filling those substitute positions? Our directors are going out and, serving in that, in some of those roles. So, it's not happening every day, obviously, but again, it's, there are, times where, that's an additional strain. So just an example of, I think where everyone's trying to do what they can, but, again, if that's, the direction that we're carrying, then absolutely, we will be going back and looking creatively at everything. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
We have proposed at the elementary level for the equivalent for FTE, and knowing how much we value our class sizes as a district, are they going to be impacted? What can we expect for kids in a kindergarten class next year, kids in a 4th grade class next year? Do we have an idea? Are we kind of like, I don't.
No, we definitely haven't. That is all based on enrollment, and I don't want to sit here and sort of give confidential, because the moment I start saying grade levels, right, that's now impacting, we haven't had those conversations. Okay. But all I can assure you is, when we're looking at those 4 FTEs, that is a direct result of what the enrollment is showing for next year, that where the need is for teachers. And so, as an example, right, if we've got, one currently at any grade level, I'm just going to use, oh goodness, I won't even use an elementary level, right? I'll say, let's say ninth grade, right? I know it's middle school, but just, high school, bear with me. If we had 3 classes currently, right, that of, ninth graders that really are, small innate, this isn't going to be a good example. I'm not even going to go there. Without using the grade levels, just, taking in TK, for example, right? I mean, last year, when we went on what the enrollment was and what our numbers were in the summer, we added a 4th TK class, to really allow for 2. But, not all of those students, showed up at the beginning of the year. And so really what we've got to consider that for next year when we look at what our TK enrollment projections are. But I can't say more. I'm so sorry. And, but just to know that really it's based on, what our enrollment projections are looking like. Still, no, we're not going to be maximizing the class size, like going over. I mean, it's still going to be very manageable. We renowned, I think we're renowned for keeping those class sizes small here at Pacific Grove. And that, continues to be, a value, right, and a priority. But even with the reductions we're doing, we're not going to be at our max sizes, even really close to them, I would say. Yeah.
Dr. Adamson, if I may. To answer that question kind of in a more narrow focus, we talked about Doctor, I just gave you a promotion. Chief Roderman talked a little bit about class size goals and maximums. And when we have the projections for enrollment next year, which I presented to the board in January, and again, without getting into grade level specifics, the projections for next year with a buffer, right? That's with unassumed, unknown students coming into our district. But we do have a calculation that I run every single year that gives us those assumptions. We won't have one class size that even hits a goal, let alone a max. These are still very small class sizes. So that's where the reduction came from in looking at next year's projected enrollment plus potential increase. These are the class numbers, the class size cohorts that we believe would fit our student population still at a very low number per class. And if we're talking about the elementary level, I will only talk about the one example that you brought up, having 2 TK classes with 11 students in them, which would then become 2 kindergarten classes with 11 students in them. That does not seem to meet it's nowhere near the goal. It certainly isn't anywhere close to the maximum. And it's probably not the best learning environment for students, even at that age, to be in a group of 11 students. It's tough for small group instruction. There's a lot that goes into that. So that's what we are looking at here when we brought forward the question you brought forward about the 4 elementary teachers. None of the classes we have projected to be above the goal. Most of them are much lower than the goal. We're still seeing class sizes of 19 and 17 and 21 and 19 and so on. So with class size goals of 25, 26 and maximums of 27, 28, that's not what we're discussing here. And that's not what we brought forward. We were extremely conservative when we made these assumptions. I hope that helped answer the question.
Yes. Thank you. And then as far as federal monies go, we know our one-time sources are going away and then the rest remains uncertain. Is that fair enough?
Yes. So federal monies, about $2.6 million is gone. About $661,000 is projected as our projected receipts that we plan to receive. But again, those are just projections. I won't know that until the unaudited actuals are finalized this year. We also don't know what our projections for revenue on the federal side will look like next year. So the 661 I mentioned, that's this year. That's just because I've done the interim reporting already. And some of these numbers are changing. I mentioned it earlier tonight as we speak, because we just closed second interim, which was July 1 through January 31st. We're working on second interim reporting right now, and revenue's down, expenditures are up. And we're still waiting on additional revenues that have not been yet realized, which might result in increased revenue. It may result in even more reduced revenue this year, especially on the federal side.
We don't know.
Do
That's
not
the short
know.
answer.
We do not know.
Okay. As far as I think kind of in the same boat as trustee Otmar with regard to the mental health services. From the way I see it, it sounds like increased responsibility for our mental health therapists who will be dealing with students who have IEPs and then students who are not on IEPs. I just wonder how the caseload, which I imagine will continue to grow, will be able to be absorbed and we can see people getting some of their needs met.
Correct. And, we want to have an honest and open conversation here at this meeting. And so when you have, a contract for services to handle all of the special ed needs of the district and 3 mental health therapists that are currently serving the gen ed population and some overlap with the special ed students. They're not doing the services that are required of the IEP, but there are still students that are on an IEP who go see the mental health therapist currently at the various sites. So when you take a reduction of, those basic 5 entities, combine them into 2, then what we have are the special education services that are being served by part-time contract for services being absorbed by those 2 employees that we would retain.
Okay.
So there would be a portion of that service that would be special ed. The remainder of the service would be available to the gen ed population. But that's the model that's being proposed in what you have with you tonight.
Okay, thank you. I think I share your concern as well that mental health services are going to continue to increase for our students and that really concerns me, I think, as a parent and as a community member, because when your mental health is not in the right space, you can't access anything. Your schoolwork, what to wear in the morning, remembering to eat breakfast, anything else. So I think that for me is a area of concern. I am glad to see that we are retaining the reading intervention teacher. I think as a parent, my kid was one of the ones who this was a struggle. And so, and it was also COVID time. So being able to have that ability to catch up and be able to access the rest of your education, like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I don't see how kids can access like some things. Even language and digital learning and all of these wonderful, advanced, exciting, innovative programs if we don't have reading support first. So I'd be interested, I want to keep that. And I'm also interested in the aids that trustee Shamas mentioned, if there's any ability to retain those as well. So for me, it would fall on the instructional assistants in the mental health. And I do say this because I can see that with a majority of the board having spoken so far, this item is coming back. On the other end of the coin, I do think as trustees, we have an obligation and a financial responsibility to turn our budget in a different direction. I think this has been said for a long time and nothing maybe has been done. I don't know. I can say from what we're experiencing right now, if nothing else, there was just a lack of long-term planning, lack of planning for sustainability. And that's impacting our students. And that's why we're sitting here with this awful decision. And so I just appreciate that we're willing to take it on, and that we're going to get creative and figure it out. But I don't know what the answer is right now. And it sounds like we're going to have another discussion. And I would love for the unions to have all of the information that, we're going to have so that we can all be on the exact same page. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Trustee McNary. I will go last here and I'll start. Thank you to the staff. Buck, Linda, Josh, Yolanda, for this difficult presentation. This was obviously not easy to make and do. This is not a reflection on you guys. It's a very difficult issue right now, in my opinion. Thank you to everybody here, the public, staff, the student representatives, the students that spoke, the board for your comments. And just a little bit of background, I realize that our state mandated timelines are the reason we're discussing RIFs now before we even know our final budget. And that's really frustrating. But again, I think that the district was doing this, knowing those timelines, and I'll remind everyone too, that be clear, this is just a discussion with direction we're giving, but we're not voting on this. It's not making a decision. So this is not the end of this topic. And I think everyone here agrees with that. As has been said a number of times here, I mean, the packet simply did not make me feel confident that the district has fully explored alternative non-student facing solutions to addressing our shortfalls. And it's not to say that that isn't the right answer, but I'm not there yet. Further, I have, as has been mentioned again, serious reservations about losing fundamental programs such as Spanish in the elementary, our tech position, not to mention regarding mental health. The point brought up about the bond is a huge one. I mean, we are building space for these and proposing cutting the positions. But I'm also really disappointed that as a broader community, and I'm talking beyond our district, we simply don't have the mental health resources necessary to support our kids here on the peninsula. And that's not something we as a board can solve, but it's something we have to deal with as a community, a small community. So I do want to feel, again, as a board member, as a parent, as a citizen of PG, that every single option for cost savings has been considered, discussed before we consider RIFs, particularly of student-facing positions. And I'll come back to that. Reconfiguration was brought up tonight. And I think this is a very similar issue where, I've heard about this since I started listening to board meetings before I even came. And it's, again, like I said, similar to what we hear tonight. And with reconfiguration, I hear that term, but we've not come close in my experience. Maybe that happened 14 years ago before I was, barely even thinking about having kids, maybe. That what would reconfiguration actually do? Would it solve the problems we're trying to do? Would it make these budget shortfalls? And I feel the same way here, that we have clearly taken on different priorities and additional costs as a board, which puts some of the blame on us, but we now have to figure out how to make that sustainable. So I did want to ask, I brought this up at the beginning, if you don't mind, Assistant Superintendent Jordan, what would the loss of federal funding look like to the district? And I'm talking about if DOE were to no longer support education and be put under, I don't even remember what they were saying. I mean, what percentage would we be losing to our budget approximately? Yeah.
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars. I can't give you an exact.
Right. I mean, like you said, you said 661 this year we're getting.
Yeah.
That's the amount of money potentially in addition to the 2.6 million we're gone. So again, we're not. Yeah.
And there is exactly the special ed funding. There's the county SELPA pass through, which does come from the state, but that does come via the federal government. And that's about 1.6 million. So there is potential there. I don't want to speculate.
Yeah. No. But the reason I bring it up is that I'm happy that there's some in the community that have positive aspirations for us getting more money for education, but that's not the way I feel. And we can't be planning for that hope. And so planning for the budget now, in many ways, in my mind, is a conservative approach. And there might be more cuts coming. So something just to be, again, aware. I'm not going to ask now, but I just, the kind of information I need, in terms of the proposed mental health changes, reductions, it would be good for us to know what's the loss in terms of hands-on hours of the proposal. Like, we're getting some ideas of it, but that's the kind of thing we need to look at is what's the money compared to the loss in services? Is it currently the majority of the students without an IEP currently seen by mental health therapists? It doesn't sound like that, but it would just be good to know. Again, not necessarily tonight, but I think these are the kind of decisions that will help. Information will help us make these tough decisions. I think, again, how many years, and you can probably answer this one off the top of your head, Josh, but how many years have we had deficit spending in the structural deficit, in a row? And if you can't, that's fine. Come back to me. It's fine.
Yeah, come back to me.
Okay. But I just say that because, again, as a board, we have been making these decisions to reprioritize and spend as costs go up in budgets. We've gained some one-time funding. We've gained some increases in property taxes. We've done some good things like, trying to raise more money by putting, costs on business construction. But, there's other options like parcel taxes are not going to solve our problems today, but are things we need to think about. If we want to offer more resources, we need to find the funds to do that. And again, not our job as a board to come up with solutions, but us to help set the priority for the district. Looking at the numbers, which again, you've done an excellent job presenting multiple times, I'm not convinced that we are going to get away from reductions in force. This is not I would love to. Fiscal solvency is one of our major tasks as a board, and structural deficit spending is something we were told not to do by the state. And so we have added these priorities that did not exist in the past, things like mental health, things like STEM, things like Spanish. But, you know, like number of board members have mentioned here, we need to see all the options, all the creative solutions that align with our clear district priorities. Again, before I'm willing to support reducing student-facing positions as well. So again, I thank you for bringing this. I hope this gives a bit of direction. I don't know if there's any other comments we'd want to add. I'll go back again, student rep as well, that might have come up, but okay.
I just want to be mindful of the fact, and it's probably pretty obvious, we're gonna have a February 27th meeting. But after that meeting, we're up against a wall as far as time goes. So when things come back to the board, I'm hoping that what we receive is something that's thoughtful and creative and thorough and has really been sort of fawned over a lot. What we received tonight feels like it was sort of like a, here you go. And I'm looking for something that's deeper than that, so that we can all feel like we've been heard, and so that everybody is being involved in this district office, that we're looking at every position. Executive assistants, can we combine them? Again, not my space to make decisions, but you know, receiving information from people that are willing to put the time in and offer it, and actually really absorbing that and taking it in and putting it on paper and letting the board decide what's appropriate for the district too, without too much of a filter, I'd say. I'd like a lot of options. I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm okay with looking at a lot of options, so that we're doing what's best for the district and what's best for these students and what's best for everybody's mental health at this point.
Yeah, and I'll follow on that. And I realize it's not a long-term solution, but grants, you know, things that we can do to, I know it's putting a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound, but you know, I agree with the options thing. I will disagree again, though. I think this presentation was mandated by the state timeline. I don't fault our staff for doing that. I appreciate the effort that was put in, but I do think also, given the sensitivities and given the needs in our community, that we are going to need more before we can make a decision. Yep, Trustee Shamas, yeah.
Yeah, I feel there's a lot of thought that went into what looks like a condensed version, but a lot of thought went into what to put together here. It's always going to be painful, you know, it's the nature of the beast. Doesn't mean there aren't some other options that could be massaged out, and maybe I don't know if we're really giving enough of I mean, when you just turn it over to staff and say, get creative, I mean, there's not much clear direction, you know, I mean, that could be all over the place. So I have some ideas anyway, but I'll think about them. But I just feel that I think what we are saying that's helpful to staff maybe is what our priorities look like. So if staff's going to go back and massage this and maybe come up with something different, you know, they need to know, like, okay, what the board said was, you know, mental health, this, and this, you know, so they have a better idea of what exactly would be palatable to the rest of us. Otherwise, I don't feel like we're giving them enough, you know, direction here.
Could I ask him, would you like more specificity as a district office on this, or do you feel like, I mean, you've heard a lot of different areas. I mean, yeah, I'd ask for a little advice on that.
I'd say non-student facing.
If that's what I'm hearing from all five, that we don't want to do any student facing positions. Is that
last resort?
What we're saying? I mean, is that what it's
absolute last resort? I feel like
really what you're saying is it has to be district office if we're doing any positions, right? Is that what I'm hearing
specifically?
Okay.
But
Again, I'm not sure about the legality of this, but I believe that both the staff and district office, I'll say this. In my view, I would rather if I was getting a salary for this more than $200, which I'll give back. I would rather give back a couple $100 a month and save the positions and save the quality, as opposed to making it a binary choice between district and staff. In reality, the cuts, if we just did it from the district office, I don't think would get us to where we need to be. So I think it has to be holistic in that sense of how do I say this? Sucking, I guess. I mean, I think it's going to be painful, but I believe that a reduction in force would be more painful. Again, I don't know if that's legal, but that is what I'm saying in terms of the option of either district office or school sites. I think it's going to have to. I think it's going to have to take some our decisions from both union and leadership about what to preserve in a way. And if there are cuts to stepping column, if that's allowed or feasible, I don't think that they should happen. Personally, I don't think that they should happen across the board. There's really, for instructional aides, there's not much to reduce, in that sense. So I think the people above a certain threshold, to be determined by district office leadership, has to they don't have to do anything. I would hope that there is some options presented about what that could look like, if that was clear at all, which it might not be. But
yeah. And I mean, just to say, class sizes fluctuate, enrollment fluctuates. I mean, that is a nature of the beast, that if you have a class with 10 kids in it at especially lower grade levels, that's something that needs to be considered. So I mean, this is, I am not comfortable saying every cut should be non-student facing, but the point, the voice that I feel like I'm hearing is we want to see all the options before we are making the student facing cuts. And if it's, we can get away with, reducing some, I don't really want to say too much on that because I don't know what the options could be. But once we go through that, if it turns out that the plan you presented tonight is the best plan to go forward, then we have to decide if that aligns with our priorities and vote yes or no on that. But I just don't feel like we have the information right now fully to know if that is the only way forward. It doesn't feel that way.
Can I just clarify what I said by non-student facing? I do understand that there will be classes that are small. And to your point about having two kinder classes that have 11 kids, that's not beneficial and that's not realistic. So that I understand. There are class size limits and minimums that are too small. And there's really not a way around that. When I'm talking about the non-student facing positions, I'm talking about aides, I'm talking about mental health, I'm talking about Spanish, I'm talking about Flex Lab and STEAM program. I'm talking about the other things that are on that list that are not reflective of class size. So I just want to make sure
Thank you for clarifying that.
clear.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yep.
Would it be helpful to staff or the board to, I guess, set a couple of priorities as far as the options we would like to return? Because if we're saying keep all of this and start over, I don't know if that's feasible right now. Not feasible right now, let's be real. For me, I would like to see the mental health portion of this, see if there are other options or ways to preserve a higher level of service. And that's not to say that all of the other programs and people And cuts, I don't want to make comparisons because I feel like they all have value, they all have merit, they're all important, and we have to set priorities. So I would say for me, if the district office is going, or excuse me, if admin is going to bring back another proposal, I would like to see potentially the mental health reductions not reduced. Or creatively tooled into something else, or potentially even spelled out so we can understand the full scope of what our services will be. And I'm open to more than one option. I know that makes for more work, but just personally, either way. Yeah, I do think we're gonna have to make cuts. I mean, that's the reality, is we're gonna have to make cuts. I don't think cuts like this have been made in this district from at least all the asking I've done around for quite some time. And it doesn't make it any easier. But we do need to start planning for our long-term financial health. So step one, or step whatever it is.
I'm
I don't-
hearing mental health therapists. I mean, would it be safe to say across the board, 5 of you feel that is a priority for sure? Like I said, you know.
I'll be honest.
Reduce.
Yeah, I mean, in hearing, I mean, Trustee Shalasa suggestion of setting out these priorities, I have a hard time making priorities without knowing the numbers. Like I said, if we're doing this reconfiguration, I would want to know how many hours are we actually losing of touch with kids. That's what's important to me, and figure out what the cost of that is, because I would say, I mean, if you were to talk about my top 3, if I were to make them, but again, it would be Spanish, STEM, and mental health. But, again, if we could keep more and have more creative solutions, obviously I would vote for that as well. It's hard to come up with the priorities beyond that without knowing all the creative options ahead of us. And I know that, again, the timeline, I mean, Trustee McNary brought that up. The timeline may not be realistic to have every option out there in 21 days, but I think we need some more to chew into before making difficult decisions like this.
When I add up the 3 salaries for the mental health therapists, that's $542,000. $542,000. So these are extremely qualified, highly trained people. I don't know that we can't, I'm not going to say replace, but that we can't augment mental health services without the service of a therapist. So, I mean, that's a luxury. We were given a luxury, and I'm not saying there isn't, obviously there was a need, people used it, kids used it, but is it realistic to keep that level of extreme? That's what, I mean, how many other districts have mental health therapists? That's an expense. So if that is the priority of the board, then it's the priority of the board. My feeling is that I'd like to look for ways that you provide augmented mental health services that don't cost $542,000.
I'd say if we're looking at salaries, though, just specifically, looking at salaries that aren't student facing like that. I mean, the time that we live in right now, it's getting more and more intense. The need for physical therapy, for mental health therapists, maybe physical therapy too, is going to increase. I mean, I don't think that we've seen the peak of our mental health crisis quite yet. And I think it would be a total disservice to take that away from our kids. I think that there are other areas in this district that are, sorry guys, but they're fat, and there could be some trimming that's done with certain positions that or reclassification, or taking a position away and bringing it back at a different step and column, something that does not face these students and isn't as essential as mental health. I mean, it's what you said, Jen, like can't even eat your breakfast when you're in trauma space, you know, or you can't sleep at night, and I don't know if anybody else has had anxiety, but it's like, it'll keep you up all night long. I haven't slept in 3 nights, you guys. Like, this is for me causing a lot of anxiety. But I mean, for a kid, it's like, I feel like at this point, yeah, there's a dollar sign on it, of course, but if these kids are our priority, which they are, we have to exhaust every single option to not take this resource away from them. I mean, mental health is all we have. It's really all we've got that's keeping us sort of grounded. And you don't have that. And we can't ask them to excel anywhere without solid mental health foundation. And if we can do anything to maintain it, $500,000 is a lot of money. But at the same time, if we take a really good look around, I think we could find it. It's not going to feel good, but I think we can find it. And it's going to take a little bit of work, and there's probably going to be some late nights. And so I'm sorry about that in advance, but we really are up against a deadline. And it can happen, though. I have faith that it can happen. And I think that you guys are going to come back with some better ideas that are less detrimental to our students. But I hope that made sense.
Yeah. I'll go to Trustee Wax, and then I think I would like to just really quickly hear from staff if we're giving enough direction. If we're not at this point, and I'll put out there too, this is a community decision. So I appreciate the creative ideas that have been shared, but if the pain is going to have to come from lots of folks in the district, we should all be sharing these ideas as well. Sorry, Trustee Wax, and then maybe just feel comfortable.
I would, again, it's hard to prioritize things for me because my kids happen to use all of them, but I would, if we're having problems staffing substitutes, and then we're kind of proposing these reductions in elementary teachers that are because we want to not hit the maximum class size, but hit a decent number. I think we might be denying the reality of how much it costs to restaff that position in subsequent years. Like, again, I don't know if a teacher can just be moved around grade level easily or not. But eliminating that position, breaking up the systems that particular grade or school is working with, and then the next year rehiring seems like inefficient way to operate in some respects. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Like, yeah, I'll go to staff just quickly to see if you feel you have what you need.
I think we have enough space to.
I think there's some breadth
for the 26th.
There's some commentary, but there's some breadth to it as well. I'll just mention that and just
Appreciate it. Yeah.
remind folks the budget deficit is not going to go away. I mean, that is still the fundamental part of this, that we do have to realize that the priorities we're setting, if it's keeping all 3 mental health therapists, which again, as a board, we need to make that decision with the right input. These cuts have to come from somewhere. So it's something we need to just be cognizant of moving forward. So with that, I might suggest we take like a 10-minute
break.
Break. Thanks everyone for attending.
Excuse me.
And yes, thanks to student rep as well. Session at 9:27 with a still full agenda. So we may be revisiting some of these things as we go, but we're starting now with item 8, action discussion, and we have an adoption of resolution number 1145. And I don't know if Trustee Shamas remembers. I know I'm calling you out, but I asked you if you'd be willing to read this item, which is the proclaiming March 2025 as Women's History Month.
Shall we stand? No. Well, I wanted to make a little comment first. And as much as women have achieved, there is still a great need to advocate for women around the world. who are forced to live unfulfilled lives. So I just thought, I don't know that we've ever done this particular resolution before. And it just made me think of, maybe we don't think as women that we need any more promotion, but we do. And yet there's so many other women around the world that are living just horrible lives, and we need to advocate for them. Okay, so this is Pacific Grove Unified School District's resolution number 1145. Resolution proclaiming March 2025 as Women's History Month. Whereas the advocacy efforts of the National Women's History Project led to an annual observance of Women's History Month, which highlights the contributions of women to events in history and contemporary society and is celebrated during March in the United States. Whereas women of every race, class, and ethnic background have made significant and historic contributions to the growth and strength of our society in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. Whereas the leadership of women in elected office, including the contributions of our own Board of Education trustees, serves as an example of community and civic engagement for girls and women in our city. Whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, the industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, which create a more fair and just society for all. Whereas, despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teaching, labor, business, and in the study of history. And whereas the Pacific Grove Unified School District provides opportunities for students to learn about the contributions of women in history through our civics initiative, whereas the Pacific Grove Unified School District has encouraged pathways for girls to pursue science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics careers, and the underrepresentation of women in non-traditional careers by supporting teachers through professional development. And whereas additional education is needed to increase the knowledge of all citizens relative to the contributions of women and opportunities for girls and women to develop their leadership skills and to eliminate bias in education and the workforce. Therefore, be it resolved that the Pacific Grove Unified School District Board of Education honors the contributions that women have made throughout history and commits to support efforts to improve opportunities for girls and women.
Thank you so very much. And I think with that, we do have a quick moment for public comment. If there is any on this item. If not, board discussion, and sorry, Buck. I thought most of the time you're heading to the bathroom. So thank you very much for coming to the mic to speak.
Thank you for making reference to my age, President Hazen.
I mean, generally when staff is stepping up to get this way, I call on them and then I feel silly. Sorry about the call out for you.
I just want to appreciate the board taking a moment to recognize the contributions of women in history. And I think that, as the father of a daughter who is a senior in college, it's just been such a gift to have her grow up in a society where there are so many examples of women succeeding in roles and having that success just expand over and over again because she has models and really the wonderful conversations to have with my daughter right now are that she's not sure what she is going to wind up doing. And I think it's because she has so many options that are in front of her now. And while it might be a little harder to make a decision going forward, what a beautiful and powerful thing that she's living in a world where she's going to have some choices. And Trustee Shamas, your words are so powerful in us taking a moment to recognize that that is not the case everywhere throughout the world. And so for us to take a pause and appreciate and just with deep gratitude, understand the incredible gift that our daughters are given to be able to assume a place of power and watch people run for president of the United States and have that as an example for what a woman can do. It truly warms my heart and gives me chills. So thank you for doing that, board.
Thank you very much. And again, apologies for the oversight and any potential slights. You know, I was going out there for the record. So I'll just start off a bit here too. I mean, yes, again, I agree with your points, Trustee Shabazz. I would argue too that even in our country, some of these privileges and rights are at risk of being eroded. And so I think this is just a reminder that the gains that we have made as a district and as a state, as a nation, should not be looked at or taken for granted, because they can be taken away sometimes much quicker than they can be given. So any other board comments after that happy note? Okay. If not, we'll go on. We're gonna item B, I was gonna.
But we have.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. Can I get a motion to pass this resolution?
I'll make a motion to adopt March 2025 as Women's History Month.
And I will
second.
Laura will second that. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes 5-0. Thank you very much. So now for item B, I was going to suggest, in the interest of time, maybe I think we have to, if it's okay with the board, to go ahead and pull item B and C to keep moving through. Not right, correction discussion. Oh, just under information discussion. So we still have to do BC. I'm sorry. Got it. I miscommunication. Okay, so for item, let's go ahead with item B. The adult education credentialed salary schedule revision. I was talking about information items. Apologies again. So this is a presentation by Assistant Superintendent Jorn.
Thanks, President Hazen. Yeah, so B and C is now a bifurcated salary schedule. There's been no salary schedule adjustments done to the salary schedule, no changes in dollar amounts. What it is a STRS and PERS requirement that our adult education instructors have two separate salary schedules, one for credentialed and one for non-credentialed employees, and they need to be posted to our website as soon as we have this approved by the board this evening. So again, no change to dollar amount, no change to salary schedule, just a bifurcated salary schedule that now exists, one for non-credentialed and one for credentialed employees at the adult school.
We now have time to go for public comment. None. Board, do we have any comment on this item? I feel.
Is this typical of the rest of the adult schools have, this is something that they've all been told to kind of create?
At other school districts, other
Yeah,
LEAs,
yeah.
that's correct. Yeah, this came out of change in regulations related to PERS and STRS. And then B, which is what we're bringing forward for Google right now, is the credentialed salary schedule revision.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve item as recommended by staff. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Moved by myself and then seconded by Trustee Shabazz. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That passes 5-0. Thank you. Now for item C, I assume similar presentation.
Item C is the exact same thing, except this is for our non-credentialed salary schedule for our adult ed instructors.
Okay, anyone in the public comment? Seeing none, I'll come back to the board. We had such a thorough presentation before. I'm happy with this as well. Can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion on staff's recommendation.
I'll second.
Motion made by Trustee McNary and seconded by Trustee Otmar. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes 5-0. So now on to item D, 2023-24 measures A&D financial and performance audit report. Back to you, Superintendent Jordan.
Yeah, so that's included in the packet. Page, I believe it's 118 through 125. Go back and look at those numbers, but essentially this is the independent audit done on Fund 21 for Measure A and Measure D. This was I think we had zero findings whatsoever. All of the testing that was done associated with the award of contracts, bidding and procurement, and being adherent to the regulations associated with community funded bond measures. We're all compliant. Again, not one item to report here on this audit. It was a clean, perfectly clean audit for 23-24.
Awesome. I will go out now. Any public comment or question about this item? No. For the board, I'll go ahead and say again, I think anytime we have these findings of none, that's a sign that you've done a lot of work behind the scenes. So thank you to Josh and your office. Any other comment from the board?
I second that sentiment, if not motion.
Okay.
But yeah.
Sentiment seconded by, I'm kidding. Yeah. Okay, with that, I'd like to ask if anyone would like to make a motion about item D. If not, I will go ahead and make a motion to approve the audit report with no findings.
Second.
Seconded by trustee McNary. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. So now we're on to the proposed board calendar, which I'm guessing will have an addition.
Correct. Well, yes, and you'll see it on there on February 27th, and obviously we'll be bringing back the, discussion from earlier, but then it's also a chance for the, the LCAP mid-year review. So that's something we're required to do at this time. And then we'll also have the CSBA policy updates, the first reading for that as well. So just approval for, adding that February 27th date.
Do we have any public comment on the addition of February 27th or the clarification on February 27th? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and go to the board. Any comments? Yeah, folks. Okay, I have none as well. Thank you again for that. And I will go ahead and just make a motion then to approve the proposed board calendar with the additional details for February 27th. Can I get a second to that?
I will second that motion.
Okay, so that motion was made by myself, seconded by trustee Wax. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope, that one passes 5-0 as well. So now we are on to the information discussion portion, and this is where we're talking about items B and C on information discussion. We will go ahead and put potentially on the 27th so that we can, or on March. Okay. And so we'll go ahead and move to item D then. Do I need to get a motion on that? No. To not act. We won't take any action on those two. Okay. So then item D, we're reviewing the budget development calendar for 25-26. Again, Assistant Superintendent Jordan.
Right, so what you have in your packet on page 147 is the cover page for this item, where it delineates the 25-26 budget development process, starting January 13th when the governor releases his budget proposal, January 9th, which you can see in bold, each one of the dates in bold is a board meeting. So January 9th, we did the review of the enrollment projections, we did the review of the property tax revenue projections, and we had the approval of the annual fiscal audit for the district. You'll see that February 3rd, we had the assistant superintendent, myself, and we had trustee Wax as well there to attend the capital advisors governor's budget proposal. On the 3rd, I will bring a summative report back to the board in March related to the governor's budget proposal prior to the May revision. March 6th, you'll see that I will be presenting, so there it is, the governor's budget proposal. Then some other dates to follow, which bring us down to May 15th, where the governing board holds the public hearing on the 25-26 district budget and the LCAP. Onward down the page on the 148, you'll see June 5th. That's the statutory obligated date for us to approve the LCAP and the budget, and which must be approved and submitted prior to July 1st of 2025. So that's it in a nutshell, what the 25-26 budget calendar looks like. Questions?
With that, we'll go ahead and move to public comment on the calendar. And again, this is another routine item we discuss. None online and none in the room. I'll go back to the board. Any questions, concerns, comments for Assistant Superintendent Jordan? I look forward to hearing more, especially from Trustee Wax, now that he's an expert on the budget. That was a thumbs up for those listening onward. So thank you for the help there. And we don't have to vote on this, but it's just a question of we give direction that we're okay with the budget. Seeing nodding, I think we're good to go ahead and say thumbs up, great job. We will hear from you soon in March. And then the last item here is future agenda items. I think we dealt with this a little bit under the calendaring item. But again, public comment on any other future agenda items that haven't been addressed. Seek any. One online. Okay, thank you. It looks like it's Molly Daniels.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
So I just it's a reclaiming of my time here a moment because I had my hand up when you asked for public comment on women's history, recognizing their contributions. And I was completely silenced and overlooked in that instant. And that's something you guys might want to think about for I'm a woman and I wasn't even allowed to speak at that time. So what I wanted to say is I wanted to, highlight women's contributions to the US military as well. And I didn't even get to say that because you didn't even give me a chance. But thanks.
Thank you very much for your comments, and I'll take blame for not noticing the online person as well. But again, thank you for your comments there. Any other public comment on future agenda item? Okay, with that board, anything else? It looks like we got one person. Yes, please.
I have a couple of future agenda items. Since I was at the high school gym last night, is the high school principal here? No, he left. Okay. Has anybody been at the gym during a basketball game lately? Okay. The PA system is non-existent almost. I mean, you can't even hear Sal. So, I think we might have some money and, some bond money that could address that. So anyway, I just want to put that on the agenda. And then the other thing I wanted to put on the agenda was to discuss possibly adjusting the volunteering hours that we require for the middle school and the high school. Someone made a really good suggestion to me that they thought it would be more helpful if those hours, half of those hours were required to be turned in by the end of a semester, and the other half by the end of the last semester, to alleviate all this running around at the last month of the school year to get all these volunteer hours in. So I just like to put that out there and we can talk about that. And then the other item is, as you know, I walk the track. I live across the street from the stadium, and I just am really concerned about the security that we don't have at the stadium, especially on the weekends. At least during the week, you have teams down there, so you have some admin down there and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on over there. For instance, well, I've talked to Josh a little bit about this before, but we have equipment out there that doesn't have a place to be except out. And so that's something to look into too. Like, is there a way to stash some of this equipment? But otherwise, I mean, we have signage that somehow people just ignore. And one of the big things is, it says no bikes inside. Okay, well, now we got a lot of kids riding these heavy duty electric bikes, and they ride them on the field. And if I see them, I get them off. Okay. So, but that's really an issue. And I would like to request that the principals and coaches remind students what the rules are down there. But our signage is very blasé. It's got one sign, and I think it would be good to have a sign on the half fence that surrounds the track where you walk in. The signage on the Forest Grove entrance is almost invisible because it's on the corner of the cyclone fencing, where if you're walking in on that side, you would never even see it. So people don't know. People bring in their dogs. People are, they're also like doing things like throwing balls against the concession stand wall. I stopped somebody from doing that because it's crumbling, you know? So, and then I just directed them, I said, hey, did you know the middle school actually has some walls that are built for that? You can go over there. So I'm, you know, but I'm worried that, you know, we put $1 million into the last renovation to replace the field and the track. And, you know, it's something that we should be concerned about, just as far as how do we make sure it's safe there, or so anyway, let's put that on the agenda.
Can I make a slight potential adjustment? And maybe it should have come up at the calendaring, but I mean, I wonder if this is both your first and third items sound like facility master plan type things, not the reminding per se, but I think, I mean, that might be something to think about calendaring as well for future agendas. When are we going to get our, you know, another time we're going to need a lot of community input and planning. So if you're comfortable with that, I'd put at least the increased signage and especially the point you're making about the PA system. These are things that we need to have as part of our planning for, you know, potential bond monies, because I agree that there's
the other thing, though, I would like to address is, you know, do we think we might need some kind of security there, like on weekends? We open it up. It's open to everybody. We used to close the gates, but we don't even close them anymore. So it's open all the time. And, you know, people go in there at night. Sometimes there's a little Rite Aid, you know, shopping cart down there. I move it. I do all kinds of.
So it sounds.
Take care.
Without going too far into an actual agenda item here, it sounds like we might have a community security force led by trustee Shamas to help.
You already have.
Exactly. So we just need to recruit a few more, such as some of your neighbors. Yeah, there we go.
I think I'm secure.
Yeah, so. So yeah, so
I know.
I think that would be something just again to
Right.
kind of.
It's just a reminder from the principal, and I think that's an easy one, you know, we can take care of and kind of we can do an update in the trustee updates on, you know, how that's going and that kind of, and even maybe the signage. I know, you know, that was brought up recently at the middle school as well, you know, so we're looking at that. So maybe we just do both, the sign, look at it at both the middle and the high school. So we'll, you know, that's an easy, you know, thing that we could do. Yeah, security, yeah, a whole nother. Yeah.
I'd also like to maybe work with the local police department in the future about the safety training. I'm not sure if it's every year or every other year, but I know that they recently did a active shooter drill. And since Officer Hill is on our schools and PD is our police department, it seems like maybe some training from them would be more localized and just build more relationships with them in terms of safety training.
I think we should add that in. That might be, can I suggest actually you chat a bit with district office staff about what's been done, and then we can help craft a future agenda item from that.
My direction is to chat with Josh. Yes.
Okay. Last chance. If not, we have closed session reminding folks to go back to one more item. So with that, thank you everyone who was in attendance tonight, and this meeting is adjourned for open. Oh, we will come back and I will not adjourn it. See, I'm faking you guys. See who's paying attention, and we will come back to adjourn at the end. For closed session. Okay. I wasn't sure with closed session. That's a good reminder. So I will go ahead and make a motion that we extend to 11. So hopefully we will not take that.
Sorry.
But yes,
Second
seconded
motion.
by trustee McNary, made by myself. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Hold on.
Okay.
She said aye.
Wait, that was an aye, not an A. You sure? It's okay. Okay, so we're going
This
5-0.
big.
We will try to come back before 11.
You're already.
It was 4-1 Lucero for the record.
Or is a nay.
Very understandably. Thank you guys so much. It's now 10:58 and I will officially adjourn do I have to report back to close? Thank you. I was just remembering that. We just information was given, I will say, on item 4, the superintendent's mid-year evaluation. With that, I'll adjourn at 10:58. Thank you very much.